Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 676. Welcome in. Hope we're doing well. It's a Wednesday night. I'm busy. Work has been... Dude, who'd have thought? I'm really busy. I'm really tired. My professional work life has been, frankly, a bit overwhelming this week. And frankly, in the recent weeks. Today's kind of interesting. Doing a guest spot with Nathan, a guy who's on the show at weekly, but doing a special appearance today to talk about the DeAndre Hopkins trade. A couple other little things I want to talk about. We just recorded that, so I'll let you know now. We talk about DeAndre Hopkins at the beginning, and then again at the end. We just revisit it, talk a little more. So I think it's an interesting conversation all around. Later tonight, I'm sitting down with a good friend of mine, Austin, to talk about baseball, actually. The World Series is happening. Kind of previewing what we think is going to happen, hearing his opinion. I really like Austin. I think he's, when it comes to sports, I'm not as tuned into. He's the guy I turn to, and he really knows his stuff. Before we do anything, though, before we go to Nathan, then ultimately Austin, I got to let you know, today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. How do you keep track of all your subscriptions, and can you tell me for sure how many you have and who is taking money from you each month? Have you ever canceled a subscription or discovered you were being charged for something you didn't think you should be charged for? Well, Rocket Money can help you. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps to lower your bills. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, I can cancel it with a few taps. I never have to get on the phone with customer service. Plus, they'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you got to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $5 million saved in canceled subscriptions. So stop wasting money on things you don't use and cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/SOS. That's rocketmoney.com/SOS. rocketmoney.com/SOS. All right, now I'm going to cut and have a conversation with Nathan. I'll see you on the other side. Joining me now is my good friend, Nathan Hawthorne. Nathan, how are you?
I'm great. It's a special day. I'm joining the episode here a little bit in the middle of it. Some shocking news, some big news this week as the trade deadline approaches. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're doing a unique little hit. We got three things I want to talk about. Number one is the obvious big news of the day. The Kansas City Chiefs have traded for a receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. A little bit of background, by the way. DeAndre Hopkins, 32 years old. KC gets DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who had 1,000 yards receiving last year and 75 catches. The Titans get a 5th-round pick, can become a 4th-round pick if they make the Super Bowl, and if DeAndre Hopkins plays in 60% of the snaps in Kansas City. On top of that, Tennessee's actually paying $2.5 million of his salary. So I think that's all the trade details. I don't care about that. Okay, the trade happened, cool. What I care about is how does this impact Kansas City? Nathan, you were a Division I wide receiver. I really trust your opinion on that position especially. Talk to me about DeAndre Hopkins. What is Kansas City getting in him?
Yeah, what Kansas City's getting is, number one, a veteran presence. D-Hop is a guy who's been around the league. He doesn't drop the football. I know that was a big deal last year in Kansas City. Receivers were dropping the football. He's got excellent hands, and he's got quick release speed. In a phone booth, right? He's not necessarily a burner over the top like he used to be, but he's got quickness and speed in that short burst area. So what does that mean for Kansas City, right? Two guys that they have lost who kind of patrolled and operated in the middle of the field, right? Rashee Rice early, we saw a lot of slants from him, right? He would play over the middle, a lot of quick slants, quick outs, things like that, servicing as their wide receiver one, occasionally be slotted outside, right? From Juju Smith-Schuster, who came in recently, we saw a little bit deeper pursuit, like more digs, kind of backside of the read. But again, somebody who was exactly where they needed to be when they needed to be there, a veteran presence. What we're going to see from DeAndre Hopkins is almost going to be a blend between the two, just because I think he is more complete than those two receivers are, even at his age. I believe he is older than both of them, certainly older than Rice, and I believe older than Juju Smith-Schuster as well. But the unique thing is you're going to get the slants and the quickness out of him, and you're going to get those physical third down catches that you need out of your wide receiver. That's number one. The second part is he still has the capability to play that kind of high hole area, whether that's a dig on the backside or whether that's Xavier Worthy is clearing things out over the top, and he's kind of either trailing him and coming from behind and kind of sitting down in the middle, or he is, snapping off a post on the backside by himself. So you're getting, I'd say, a hybrid between the two, and that just makes him scary and dynamic. He's a guy that can line up on the inside. He's a guy that can line up on the outside. And again, he doesn't drop the football when it is in his catch radius. Last thing I want to say about DeAndre Hopkins is the quick screen game. A lot of what we've seen in Kansas City for their quick screen game has gone to your Mecole Hardmans, to your Xavier Worthy, right? And then you hope they break a tackle and can get it to, 10, 12 yards, something of the sorts. With DeAndre Hopkins, what you're getting is a guy that you can also kick it out to in those quick screens on, a 2nd and 7, 3rd and 4, who is physical enough to catch it by himself when you have numbers and leverage, but then he'll break that first tackle. And if he doesn't, he'll at least drag it and fall forward. And I think that's one of the underrated things about DeAndre Hopkins is his ability to work with the football after the catch. So again, to kind of summarize those things that we've talked about, he's going to be used a lot in the quick game in terms of those screens, like we just talked about. He's going to be great for slants over the middle, first, second down. But he's also going to be great on that backside once Xavier Worthy takes the top off the defense. He can kind of sit in that high hole area and be exactly where Pat needs him to be.
I would imagine DeAndre Hopkins is really excited. He spent the last year in kind of a quarterback graveyard in Tennessee.
But he's going, Zach, to the quarterback who has more interceptions thrown than touchdowns. How is that good for him?
Oh yeah, that narrative. You should bench Patrick Mahomes for Aiden O'Connell in your fantasy team. I saw that today.
I mean, hard to argue, right?
Yeah, it shows how meaningful the stats that are generated in fantasy football are. But here's what I will say, kind of the counterpoint, the devil's advocate, I'll say. We saw Julio Jones late in his career go play with Tom Brady. I saw Chad Ochocinco go play with Tom Brady late in his career. We also saw Randy Moss make a similar move. That worked really well. Just because he's a superstar at an old age going to play with a star quarterback doesn't mean necessarily he's going to succeed at a high level. Where in the pantheon of Randy Moss to Julio Jones with Tom Brady, how do you see him working out? Is this a home run? Is this a Super Bowl move that gets him over the top? Does this make Kansas City the best team in the AFC? Like, where does this really play out? How does this land for KC as a results standpoint?
Yeah, great question. Two extremes here with what we had from Julio Jones and what we had with Randy Moss, right? Like Randy Moss had more in the tank.
Yeah.
He just got poisoned by Oakland. Like occasionally that happens. You go to a bad team and you just kind of flop and you lose that passion, that drive, that desire to be sharp.
I don't think this is a comparison, maybe worth making, but I'll throw it out there. I remember when Antonio Brown went to the Raiders, I was stoked. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be great. And it tanked like really, really hard. I don't think that's going to happen. Different human beings, obviously. But my point is that we've seen great receivers go to teams later in their career and flame out and do absolutely nothing. I don't think that's going to happen here, but it doesn't mean necessarily to me that they're automatically, it's going to be a home run and he's the best receiver in football. So how do you see it working out?
I see a version. Remember Juju 2 years ago, 2022 came in and ultimately ended up getting paid by the Patriots. Dumb move by them. That's what I see for DeAndre Hopkins, but I see it being a little bit better for him, right? Like the option with Julio Jones, talking about the Buccaneers, there was already Mike Evans, obviously their bona fide number one, and Chris Godwin. And then they had Leonard Fournette in the backfield and an ascending Rashad White, I believe, in his rookie year. Like there was other options. There was other places to go with the football. And he was also hardly healthy, whether it was his hamstring or his foot. Like he just wasn't out there. And he was truly done. He was at the end of his career. DeAndre Hopkins, last year we saw, again, he had 75 receptions. He's still more than capable and has the juice in the tank. And they need him to have the juice in the tank. There's no other option. It's not like he's coming into a situation where there's a number one option right now. He is going in there and he's arguably going to be the number one option. And the beauty of Andy Reid in Kansas City is obviously he's known as a great play designer and he sets his players up to be in the best possible situation to maximize their talents, right? And I believe that's entirely different than joining a Tom Brady offense kind of on both sides, right? With Julio and with Randy Moss. So that's going to be exciting for him. And like I said, more comparable to Juju in 2022. But I think we're going to see more touchdowns, and we're probably going to see more catches again, just because he is quicker in that short burst space, and is going to provide Kansas City with that physical catch radius.
Yeah, it's a 1-year contract for DHOP. Means he's an unrestricted free agent in 2025. He's playing on a contract year trying to earn more money. I'd love to see him do really, really well, win a Super Bowl, and maybe even stay in Kansas City. I'm rooting for him. I think it's been a long time since I've seen him play with a great quarterback, and I'm hoping he can come back and remind people how good he is and how good he's been. By the way, you said this earlier. Juju Smith-Schuster is 27 years old, so
Yes.
a couple years younger than my boy D-Hop. Anything else you want to add to this? I think pretty clearly the Chiefs, I would already have said they were the best team in the AFC, but to me, this makes it really obvious that they are the best team in the AFC. They're the clear team to beat. They're undefeated for a reason, but also it's them or Baltimore kind of fighting for that top spot. I think this puts them ahead of Baltimore. What say you?
I don't think this move in particular puts him ahead of Baltimore, but I think in the aggregate, once Hollywood Brown comes back, it sounds like his progress is going really, really well in terms of returning from the IR. He may be available for the playoffs. Follow that up with the fact that Isaiah Pacheco may be soon back for Kansas City. So they're going to get some of their weapons. They're going to get some of their players back. Obviously, you'll still have Xavier Worthy. You'll still have Mecole Hardman, the hero of the last Super Bowl. So I don't think it's this move in particular that gets them over the top, but I think that this puts them in an excellent situation to maintain receiver production while Juju is coming back, while Hollywood Brown has the potential to come back. And then you're going to have a two-headed monster at running back with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, two guys that you'll be able to keep fresh and continue to run on teams to control the clock.
There's a chance here we look back on this trade in like March and go, how did anyone allow Kansas City to get their hands on DeAndre Hopkins? I think that's possible. I'd love to see that kind of impact happen for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I'd love to see it happen for him. I don't know what that next year or that next contract would look like. At this point, I wouldn't even call him icing on the cake. He's more so like, when you get like a cheesecake and you kind of get that like fruit compote on top, like you don't really care about, but like nice to have. Like that's how I see DeAndre Hopkins currently. For that next contract that he's going to get. I don't think anybody needs to go hard, die hard, pursue him. But in this sort of situation, yeah, he can be a great addition and a great veteran presence.
I think for him, just from his perspective, right, this is the last piece of your career you want to get together. You want to win a Super Bowl. It's the only thing he hasn't done in his career. I know my camera just died. We'll deal with it later. Let's move into another receiver, Cooper Kupp. Actually, it came back right as my camera came back right as I said that.
Let's talk about Cooper Kupp? We're in for that guy. Camera wants to be here for it.
Cooper Kupp is 31 years old. I don't know if he's on the trade block or not. The Rams season is kind of lost. Seems like things aren't going well for them. I'm curious who you think might, make a move for Cooper Kupp. I got a couple teams in mind, but first, can you just talk about Cooper Kupp, what he does well at 31 years old? What does he bring to the table for an NFL team?
Yeah, what he brings is an extreme knowledge of defenses. I think between him, Stafford, and McVay, they have an excellent understanding of the picture in front of them. And so what does that mean for a wide receiver? That means I know exactly how I need to run my route and what my timing needs to be in order for the quarterback to be able to get me the ball throughout my route. And whether that's a 5-yard bench, whether that's a crosser, whether that is a post, whether that's a corner, whatever the route is, what Cooper Kupp has the ability to do is analyze what he is seeing very, very quickly and adjust his route accordingly. There's obviously the famous clip of him, I believe it was 2 years ago might have been NFC Championship, when he was talking about beating cover 3 fire zone, and that he's just man on man with the safety, and all he has to do is beat him as the number 3. Like that's the kind of stuff that you get with Cooper Kupp. Is normally you run that route for the love of the game, but he knows, hey, there's a chance that Matt Stafford will throw that ball to me. And you pair Cooper Kupp with a quarterback who sees the things like that on the same level. So you think about a Matt Stafford, a Pat Mahomes, who's another great analyzer of defenses as quarterbacks. You get them with a guy like that, and they can have this just game of pitch and catch, like Tom Brady, Julian Edelman type stuff. Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. If, again, quarterback, wide receiver on the same page, that's what he brings. And obviously, he's got excellent hands. He's got short burst quickness. I wouldn't say amazing speed over the top. But again, like that is his skill set, is finding a way to get open using leverage and information that the defense gives him.
He's really good at finding green grass against zone coverage. Like
Very
that's
good.
his forte. And that's what Puka Nacua does really well as well in that offense, ironically. The teams I think that might make a move for him that makes sense. Look, you got a 1-year contract. You do have an out after this year if you want, with $22 million of dead cap. So he's not cheap. I think a team that makes a move for Cooper Kupp does it if you're close to a Super Bowl. You take on the contract, you take on the baggage that comes with it. If you think this is what can put you over the top, I think a team like Kansas City, maybe Buffalo, maybe Detroit, a team in the hunt, in the mix that wants to add one more piece to their Super Bowl run or what they think is a Super Bowl run. Any other teams coming to mind? Again, Kansas City, Detroit, and Buffalo are the teams to me that come to mind. I don't see the Ravens really being a great fit there, but anyone else come to mind for you?
The Chargers come to mind just because they're local to LA and they desperately need receiving talent. We saw Justin Herbert throw for 360 some odd yards. Obviously, no touchdowns. There were a number of drops, and I'm not going to say Justin Herbert's blameless, in that game for decision making, but they're a team that could use some receiving talent. A team like Washington would be great if you get Scary Terry. You get Scary Terry going over the top, and you've got Cooper Kupp. Not only again, like you'd have two guys that can both be man and zone beaters. That'd be awesome. Don't send them to Carolina to die, please.
Do you think Cooper Kupp pairs? Do you think he pairs better on a team that's got a speedy receiver who can beat people over the top? He's more of a number 2 at this point. Is that kind of how you view him?
I wouldn't say he's a number 2 in that way because again, he had 20 catches in 2 games. The guy gets open, and because of that makes him a number 1 no matter where he goes. It certainly helps to have a receiver who is able to take the top off a defense, but you can say that for essentially any wide receiver unless you are the guy who can take the top off the defense. And there's only a couple of guys like that in the league in general. You're talking about, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, those kind of guys. So yeah, again, it certainly helps, which is why Washington would be great. You could even argue Denver would be a great spot for him. I'm not sure if Denver can shell out the cash. I'm not sure what their cap situation looks like, but I think that would be a very interesting place for him to go as well. You'd get a quarterback like Bo Nix, you get a coach like Sean Payton who loves a receiver who can find green grass, and you pair that up, you marry that together, it could be really interesting.
He definitely fits into the scheme that they got going on in Denver. Yeah. You mentioned the Dallas Cowboys. So CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp on the other side.
That's more for the sake of, hey, they just need any help they can get. I've got no formal analysis for that one.
Is that all you got on Cooper Kupp? They play Thursday night against Minnesota. I think he's going to have a great game. And then it'd be interesting if they got a great game, a long weekend off, and he gets moved. I don't know when a trade would happen for Cooper Kupp, but he's definitely on the trade block, and it seems like that's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to add here. It would be sad to see him leave the Rams, but at the same time, it might be time, and I think that clock's kind of going up. Hence the trade rumors about Matt Stafford, hence the trade rumors about Puka Nacua. It might be time for them to have a little bit of the changing of the guard. We already saw Aaron Donald retire, and that team is this weird mix of old and young, and just Stafford and Cooper Kupp seem to be like the old guys on the block right now.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of that rumor, Matthew Stafford to the Vikings. I don't know that that's real. I don't know what's going on there. That seems...
It's very strange timing, too.
Yeah, well, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. They've got Sam Darnold playing fairly well. It's late in the year to add a quarterback, in my opinion. It's a weird move that I'm like, is that... I don't know if that's real or not. I'd be shocked if that move happened, and we can talk about it if it does. But I saw that news and was kind of like, it's a weird thing. I don't know. Not everything you hear is true. Not every rumor is actually a possibility to happen. That was a weird one to me.
Yeah, that was very strange. I don't know really what to make of it. I think it'd be a mistake, probably with the way Minnesota has set themselves up this year. Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is Robert Saleh, a coach I love, I'm rooting for. News came out, he's on the Packers sideline. He's now coaching for the Green Bay Packers. He's got a, quote, fluid role with the offensive side of the football. He's helping the offense. That makes sense, by the way. Matt LaFleur was literally the best man at Robert Saleh's wedding. They're very, very close. And I think you bring him to Matt LaFleur's side of the football rather than mess with and and risk interrupting a good defense Jeff Hafley's got going on over there. I just think football coaching can have a lot of egos, a lot of personalities. They got a defensive side of the football taken care of. You don't want to interrupt that, and you don't want to kind of step on anyone's toes. Robert is there because he loves football, wants to be involved. I also think it's interesting, what happened under Robert Saleh with the Jets organization was an offense that struggled. And so as much as it's a good opportunity for the Packers to have a good, smart football guy around, it's also, I wonder if a bit of an opportunity for him to change the narrative about him, Robert Saleh, to change the narrative that he's got no idea what's going on with offense. I'm sure he's going to learn a lot and have a great time in that room and maybe walk away a better coach. What do you make of that move?
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? And until you're in the situation of being a head coach, you don't know how you're going to handle it. Like you have to learn to be a head coach. For some people, it's a little bit easier than others, and for some people, you get a little more mentorship before stepping into that role. So that's the first thing I'll say. But the situation in Green Bay, I think this just benefits Green Bay of having another strong defensive voice to be able to attack more teams in the NFC. You think about some of the high-powered offenses, especially in their division. Why would you not want a guy like Robert Saleh in there who's been dealing with teams like the Dolphins, teams like the Chiefs, like the Bills? Again, high-powered offenses, and found a way to really limit them. Again, I don't think Robert Saleh wants to step on toes. I think he just wants to stay football sharp. You have a couple days off from work and your brain gets a little foggy and you're like, I don't really. He just wants to keep that football mind sharp, continue to build those connections with the NFL. The NFL is a big time fraternity. So the more relationships you can build and make with more coaches, the more opportunities that you're going to have for potential jobs. So I think this is a great spot for him to be. And you're right. Maybe he can sit down on a few meetings with LaFleur and understand offense a little better. But again, I still contest that he just needed to change the offensive play caller.
It sounds like an analyst role with the Packers, and I like it. I think it really shows that Robert Saleh loves football.
He loves football, man.
Matt LaFleur said, dude, go rest on a beach. And he said, no, I want to be involved. I love the game. And I think that's really cool. I don't know what Robert Saleh's future looks like. I think he'll definitely get a job as a defensive coordinator, no problem. Head coach, I'm not sure. But I certainly like him, and it seems like a moment of reflection, of learning. I think anytime you got a guy with his acumen working to poke holes in your offense, frankly, and talk about what a defense is going to do to prepare for you is going to really help. So I think in meetings, in game planning situation stuff, he's going to be great and really, really helpful. And again, it says a lot about a guy who a week after getting fired, already back coaching, involved. Cliff Kingsbury got on a plane and went to Thailand. He didn't seem like he was in a hurry about coaching, and I don't blame him. Huh? You get fired; it's painful. A lot of people take time off, and I think there is something to be said for walking away and getting refreshed. But also, man, is it hard to walk away from the game? I'm disappointed the Packers don't play the Jets later this year. I would have loved to see that.
Hey, and Packers are arguably, kind of in the hunt for a Super Bowl team. So if he can help get them over the edge defensively, whether that's just a note here or there to kind of help out Hafley, not that Hafley needs help, let's be clear, but just, sometimes an extra set of eyes can help, bring another dimension to that defense that's playing very, very well right now. And, you end up in the Super Bowl and you win, you look around and you say, hey, it wasn't me. So I think it's a little bit of I love football, a little bit of validation for him to say, it's not because of my football knowledge. Things just are tumultuous in the New York Jets organization.
I could see him getting criticized for not taking enough time off. Honestly, I think it's very possible that people are going to say that. What I will point out, if I'm Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, doing a great job, by the way, you got to be. I hope he's big enough to put his ego aside. If he ever needs help, be like, hey, Robert, what do you think of this? I hope that there's enough maturity there that Robert Saleh is floating around the building, man. And it's just, if you're having trouble with something and that dude's out there willing to give you advice, you should call him. I don't know if that's what's going to happen in the Packers organization. I don't know what that looks like. Again, I think there's a lot of, it's my defense, don't touch it. I think there's a reason is on the offense side of the football. I just think it's to carefully safeguard everything. But if I'm Jeff Hafley and I got Robert Saleh in my building, there's no way in hell I'm not talking football with the guy as much as humanly possible. I just think it can't hurt to rub shoulders with that dude and pick his brain.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want to do. And a guy, again, who has had a renowned defense in the NFL, like you said, if you can put the ego aside, and I don't know Halfley or his disposition, but I'd like to think that Green Bay organization is egoless. Isn't the word, but I don't think that they put ego above everything else. I think that they put winning, they put knowledge and building a strong culture ahead of everything else, which is why this will be okay.
Yeah, Nathan. Final question. Again, back to the reason we brought you on. Does DeAndre Hopkins give Kansas City a higher likelihood of winning the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Enabled body pass catcher is just what they need, right? But again, you're getting a veteran, a guy who's been in and around the block. And again, that quickness and that speed that he still has in those short bursts can be big on third downs. It can be big in that screen game, big with the slants over the middle. He's such a complete wide receiver still, although he doesn't have the burn over the top. And I think that's going to help grow not just the Kansas City office right now, but perhaps talk to guys like Xavier Worthy. When Rice gets back around the building, like be able to talk to him a little bit. Juju, it's just another guy in there who's seen and done and accomplished a lot in the league, and typically you can't go wrong doing that.
Yeah, it's rare you get a guy who at one point was the clear best receiver in football in your building. Like when Odell Beckham Jr. went to Miami, I don't think you could ever say that about OBJ. I think a lot of people are going to compare those two moves. Like, a guy late in his career who's done nothing recently. I think DHOP is the rare guy that like, this is maybe not the same DHOP 5 years ago, but again, at one point he was the best receiver in football.
Yeah, and OBJ carried a few more injury tags even before he got to the Rams. Like, remember the story? He had no ACL. I think this is a little bit healthier DHOP, and I hope that he finds the drive to get after it again, because sometimes it can be really, really tough. Speaking from a personal situation where when you're not winning a lot of games, it gets a lot harder to show up and hit your reps and do things full speed. And so I'm sure it's going to be a shock when he shows up to Kansas City for that first practice. He's like, oh shit, like these guys are moving. Like this is a championship team. And I'm excited for him to see that. And I'm excited to see how, he responds, because outside of, the time spent in Houston, he hasn't really been competitive, in that time with Arizona, and obviously the past couple of years with Tennessee.
Yeah, he goes from a 1-5 team without a quarterback to 6-0 with honestly the best quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life play football. And I watched Tom Brady play almost every snap. The other thing I want to say, it's funny, DeAndre Hopkins. Sorry, excuse me. Why am I blanking on the name? Guy who went from the Raiders to the Jets. Davante Adams. We saw Davante Adams in a 7-day span go from the 2-5 Raiders losing to the Steelers to 7 days later on another 2-5 team, also losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like these moves are not the same, man. I think from an emotional standpoint, if you're not invigorated to play football, playing with Patrick Mahomes on a 6-0 football team, I think you just don't love football. I can't imagine a more revitalizing move to have happen in your career than getting to play in that building with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and all the people they got there and the minds they've got there and the culture of winning. This is the first time D-Hop's played in a building like this. I mean, that's true. He played years in Houston, Arizona, Tennessee. Like he's never been in a situation in an organization with a culture of winning like he is now. And I think that's going to be something
excited for him.
I think it's going to bring a lot out of DeAndre Hopkins, honestly.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Hey man, thank you for your time. Really, truly, on a Wednesday, randomly in the evening. Thanks for your time. I love you, man. I appreciate you, and hope you have a great night.
See you guys later.
May I have your attention, please? There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators, but proceed to the stairways and exit the building.
I'm gonna go. So we'll continue later. I think. I don't know. Joining me now after what I will call we'll call that like a rain delay because technically there was water involved. Joining me now is my good friend Austin. Austin, how are you?
I'm good. I'm dry.
You're dry. Hey, I am too. But the apartment above me is not. It's like flooded. There was a sprinkler system explosion. Basically, there's like water everywhere. It was weird. I evacuate my apartment building because the fire alarm's going off, and I go outside and I smell fire. And I'm like, that's weird. It's actually the homeless people next to the freeway where I live, they have a fire, so that's why I smelled fire. Although my building fire alarm was going off, and that was unrelated. That was water related. So anyway, drama over. Here we are talking about, I think, baseball now. How do you want to start this? Where would you like to lead into? I've got questions for you, but do you have anything you want to say first?
I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Like, this is going to be such a good World Series. A lot of the baseball fandom online, and for reasons I understand, are a little peeved at the idea of like the coastal elite, big market, gigantic payroll
Yeah.
teams. Like, it worked for them, right? Like, everybody wants to, when the Rays made the World Series several years back, this is like really low on the payroll rankings, and it's like, oh, this is like a scrappy team that builds from within and isn't just buying wins, and here they are. And this is like the complete opposite of that, where you've got the two biggest payrolls in the league, and it worked out exactly as both of them have planned to this point, and now they're here, and that's a worthy way to feel. I get it, I do, but Yankees Dodgers, right? Like, all the stardom, it's going to draw a ton of eyes. I saw Jeff Passan tweet out that this is going to kind of set the upper ceiling for baseball viewership in the country, and I think that's completely true. I'm excited to see like the country show out and hopefully watch this thing, and I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, for context, game one of the World Series is Friday. Yankees at Dodgers in LA at Dodger Stadium. And you already touched on it. I mean, these teams are just stacked. I would argue, you mentioned the highest payrolls in baseball. I look at the Yankees specifically and I go, man, like, that's like a team you build in MLB The Show. I mean, that really is like an all-star team. It's insane. It's Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton. That already is like an incredible team. And then you got Gleyber Torres, Alex Verdugo, Anthony Volpe, Garrett Cole pitching. Like, it goes on. And you're like, man, the Yankees just bought the best team in baseball, full of stars, and it worked out. They're in a World Series. What I like about this for me is it's the obvious two best teams in baseball playing each other. Like, that's fun. That's going to be interesting to see what happens. Am I out of line to say, hey, so I mentioned all the Yankee stars. Here's what I see when I look at the Dodgers roster. Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitching, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Mookie Betts, obviously Shohei Ohtani. I look at the Yankees roster, though, and I see more stars. Am I out of line by asking that or by drawing that conclusion?
The stars are probably the brightest in New York. I mean, you mentioned them. You've got the Judge Soto Stanton trio is, in terms of stardom, pretty unmatched.
It's egregious. I would say
pretty nuts. Truly. I mean, and Stanton is somewhat of a shell of what he used to be just because of injuries, but still like an amazing player. Soto is essentially this generation's Ted Williams, and Judge is Judge. Judge broke Roger Maris's AL home run record last year. Had another tremendous, presumably MVP winning campaign this time around. Yeah, he's like the king of New York at this point. Like, it's so. No, you're not out of line at all. And they've got the supporting kind of staff that you mentioned. Not the same level of names, but guys like Jazz Chisholm, who they acquired from the Marlins in trade earlier this year. Rizzo, who you mentioned, an upstart, young, hopefully for the Yankees, superstar in the making shortstop in Volpe, as you mentioned, who was recently a photograph emerged of him at the 2009 Yankees World Series parade wearing Yankee gear. So that's a cool story for the kid there. I think you're right on line. I mean, this is the Yankees, right? Like, this is the reason that, it's been a while for them. I think it's 15 years between appearances in the World Series for them, but this is the 2000s Yankees and prior. This is, you bought a bunch of wins, you brought in a bunch of high level talent, and here we are.
Yeah, it brings me back to Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, Jason Giambi, like the crazy teams they built in the early 2000s. This feels the same, if not, frankly, more powerful, actually. Like, it's, again, the level of talent I would say they have, it feels egregious when you look at them. You're like, oh my gosh, the hoard of gold they're sitting on is crazy. They're the favorite, right? Like, the Yankees, I would imagine, are the favorite.
Dodgers are favored.
Really? Why?
The Dodgers are favored. I would presume, because the Yankees have to play 4 games in LA. Yeah. LA's got the home field advantage, so I would say that's probably why. I think, and we'll get into it, I think there's some stuff. I would pick the Dodgers personally. Like that's my pick. I think Dodgers in 7, not to bury the lead or jump that, but I think Dodgers in 7 is probably the choice that I would go with.
Is that because of pitching?
They get an extra game at home. I like their bullpen a little more, and they've also that bullpen's had to get used more. We talked about the Tigers and how they've kind of utilized their bullpen during the latter stages of the year, and while the Dodgers haven't gone as fully down that rabbit hole as the Tigers have, there have been a lot of, and it's because of health. It's because of health concerns that the Dodgers have had in their rotation, their starting rotation especially. They've had to dig into their bullpen, and they've had to throw some bullpen games out there to win them some must wins as this October has gone on. So, at the end of this thing, we're at the very end of the road here. Who knows? If Dodgers bullpen arms just look like they're not up for it anymore, I don't think that would be that surprising. But I think I trust them more as we get into the series to hold up more than the Yankees pen does. But again, that firepower for the Yankees, like if you told me that, in across 6 or 7 games, like Stanton, Judge, Soto hit, like 15 home runs or something combined, it's like, okay, well, what do you do about that? And that wouldn't even be that surprising to me.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. There's a lot of ways it could go.
Yeah. So I got a text off to my right. I just got a sale. So yay.
Congrats,
That's
man.
cool. I saw my screen pop. I would imagine this matchup is what baseball wanted, correct? Like Rob Manfred,
100%.
the MLB is like, they're just creaming their pants, right? They're so excited, I would think, by this matchup.
Yeah, and this is, people were joking about it at the start of the year when, 50, 60 games in, it's looking like these are the two best teams, and it's like, oh man, I bet Manfred's stoked over this. And, the nature of baseball postseasons can get squirrely to the point where it's like, okay, but like, are these teams going to make it? Do the wheels fall off somewhere? Like somewhere along the line, someone's gonna get hurt, or there's gonna be a blow up game from someone. Garrett Cole's gonna throw like an awful game, and the Yankees lose or something. And it just never happened that way. And here we are. It got a little kind of sort of close-ish for a second in the NLCS. The Mets looked like they wanted to try to come back and make that a series. It didn't work out for them, but here we are.
Yeah, they weren't exactly long series though, right? The Dodgers beat the Mets 4-2 in 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's not nothing. They got challenged a little bit, but it wasn't exactly a 7-game series. They got stretched all the way.
That series was bizarre too because it was 6 games. I think none of them were close.
Yeah,
like it was
back and forth and back and forth.
Like blowouts every way. Strange series.
Where the Yankees beat the Guardians 4-1 in 5 games. A lot faster series.
Those were all close too. It was like the inverse. It was like you look at a 5-game series and it's like, oh, it was a blowout. All those games were close. I think the Guardians led in every game. So, that's like the closest 5-game set ever. Whereas the Dodgers Mets was a different tune.
I'm fortunate. I'm going to the Oregon coast this weekend, so I'm going to watch 2 games in a row, Friday and Saturday night. From the Oregon coast in a beach house. I'm really excited. It's like a perfect setting for baseball, in my opinion. Like to be on your couch, ocean off to your right, baseball to your left. What kind of role does Shohei Ohtani play in a series like this against a team like the Yankees?
The role he's played all season, I would imagine, killer. That's where he's at. It's interesting. I've seen some people, I'm not sure, I doubt the Dodgers do this, but Shohei's, you might have seen it circulating, but so far in this postseason, he's won for a lot with runners not on base. It's like 1 for 22 when I saw it. And I think he's hitting like 867, not slugging or OPSing. His batting average is in the mid 800s with runners in scoring position. So it's like, okay, he even when he's slumping, quote unquote, he's still like when the moment is at its most important, he's coming through. And I've seen people suggest maybe he goes to the 3-hole to be able to hit with the runners on base more often. Try to present that. I don't think they'll do that. I think they want to get Shohei as many at bats as they can, and that would mean leaving him leading off. But yeah, I think his role is to do what he's done all year. I would hope that they let him be free on the base paths as far as stealing. This idea that like when his singles are doubles most of the time because of how effective he is at stealing bases, that's such a gigantic leverage play in October that you can turn leadoff singles into doubles, and you can have a guy on second with no outs. I mean, when a guy who's got that kind of speed, and it's funny because Shohei is fast. He's not otherworldly upper crust fast, but he's an amazing base stealer and has great instincts. When you can put that guy on second base to, with no outs or with one out, your odds of scoring a run that inning go up so much, and that's crazy valuable. And I don't think the Yankees really have, short of just their raw power and ability to, put runs on the board with one swing of the bat, they don't have that kind of like X factor in that way that can turn a game in a way that few can. The way that Shohei is on the base pass. So I think I would hope that's what they continue to ask of him.
The real question is who has more pressure on them, but I think the way to look at it actually is, when you build a team like the Yankees have and you build a team like the Dodgers have, spent all this money, what comes along with that is expectations. I'm curious who you think actually can handle and maybe survive losing. Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, and Aaron Boone, the manager of the Yankees. One of these teams has to lose, and therefore, the expectations that come along with the team you build are going to be not met. Which team can lose and which manager can lose and keep their job? And how does losing affect one of the losers of this matchup? Is it like, if, for example, if Aaron Boone and the Yankees lose, is he out? Is he like, hey, you didn't get the job done, you're fired, we'll find a guy who can win with a team with this much talent?
I think there's always more pressure on the Yankees because it's New York. And not to say that like the Dodgers have some fledgling fan base who doesn't care, but like,
yeah,
it's the Yankees, right? Like, it's every game there's going to be, well, if they win, it's going to be something positive. If they lose, it's going to be some quip on the front page of the Post. There's going to be constant conversations regarding Boone and co. If this doesn't go that way, and I'm not even sure if it's warranted. Frankly, I mean, this team, they won a ton of games this year. They're the best team in the AL. Like, they were a really, really good team, and they're built to win. But so again, I'm not sure if that pressure is warranted, but it'll be there.
Yeah, no, I'm curious how you think this World Series affects baseball. These two teams being built the way they are, it's not really a thing that can easily be replicated. So what do you take away from a match like this? Do the other teams in the MLB just go, well, nothing we can do, we can't compete with that?
Maybe if you're, we've seen teams recently enough with not high and upper echelon payrolls succeed. Like, I don't think it's a thing. I think the game's different now in how it used to be, in that we've gotten smarter. The game has gotten smarter.
Yeah.
The game has gotten more adept at finding cheaper talent. I don't think you have to be spending to win, certainly. So as far as what it means for baseball from inside front offices, good players win games. I think it's kind of, the thing that it can be boiled down to, and it's like everybody knows that.
Yeah.
As far as the public perception goes, and how I think the fans or baseball, observers will see this, I think it's a great thing. I genuinely do. And this is not something I would usually say. I remember I have very specific and visceral memory of watching the Super Bowl that the Rams just won recently, several years back. And I think, if my timeline's right, the Dodgers had just won the World Series or made the World Series, and who else was it? The Lakers had just won the finals. It was the bubble year.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does one do? These coastal teams, LA, they just dominate. They win everything. It's like, this sucks. I was like, borderline, why even be a fan? Why care? And I was like, this is and that passes, obviously, but it's like, man, we're just watching this huge, they have everything. They have all the advantages. They have all the money, and they have the glitz, and they have marketing opportunities. Who wouldn't go play? They're going to dominate forever in every sport. And then obviously that dies down a little bit. And so all this is to say, I would usually not be someone who would be in favor of this matchup. Typically, I would like to see, I would have liked to see a Guardians Mets. Well, and the Mets had a huge payroll too, but the way they came back from a tumultuous start to the season, the Guardians haven't been there in a long time, and they don't have a crazy high payroll. They got some likable guys. So the purist, quote unquote, in me would have said, yeah, Mets Guardians have been fun. but I'm just so excited about this series. I don't know. Like I'm going against how I usually feel about these things. I think for reasons we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about, this is going to be such a fun series. I don't know. I'm stoked.
Well, it's undeniably good for baseball, right?
Yes, that was the question, right? Like, yes,
Like,
and it is.
well,
It is.
Mets Guardians would not have intrigued me as much. I'm going to the Oregon coast, and like part of that means I'm going to spend time with my family, right? I don't know that Guardians Mets, would make me break up my vacation, my evenings of my vacation with my family to have baseball on. But Yankees Dodgers, like, I don't care what I'm doing. I have to have it on. I'm too curious. It's too good a
It's
matchup.
too intriguing. It's too fun. It's too loud. It's you just got to say it out loud. It's Yankees Dodgers. Like what? Like that's what it is. It's Yankees Dodgers with stars, with some of the most interesting and talented players we've had in decades. I mean, quite literally when it comes to guys like Ohtani and Judge and Soto. Like it is effortlessly enthralling in that way. And I think that, and like I said, the tweet that I mentioned earlier with Passan, like this is gonna, I think, be a really good measuring stick for how to what upper extreme we can get the American public to care about baseball.
Yeah, if you don't care about this one
now, then it's not going to be ever.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think it's great. It's great for baseball.
It's the litmus test on how much intrigue you can draw into baseball. Also, I got to say, am I wrong to say it feels like this is a matchup? This may not be the first World Series we see between these two teams. Like the
12th,
Yankees,
actually. Yeah,
they really, the way they built Shohei Ohtani's contract was to build a big team around him to be able to pay everyone else, right?
The Dodgers,
the Dodgers, excuse me. And the Yankees aren't going anywhere. They're too loaded with talent. So I think it's possible this is the first of multiple matchups between these two teams. Does that sound crazy, or do you kind of agree with that thought?
What looms over the Yankees is Juan Soto is a free agent after this season. Every front office in baseball is obviously going to kick together and see what they can do. Very few will be able to afford it. Even fewer still will be interesting to him. And I think it's extremely likely that he ends up signing a gigantic deal to stay a Yankee. The Mets will be offering. There will be teams that have big payrolls that would love to sign, like I said, what I think is this generation's Ted Williams. I think he stays a Yankee, but that's going to be what looms.
I would go as far as saying Juan Soto is my favorite baseball player. I love his approach to being in the batter's box, and the way he draws walks actually is really interesting to me. Is it possible he wins the World Series with the Yankees and then signs with the Dodgers? I mean, that would be really interesting.
There's too much money, I think, tied up in this Dodgers team, and I don't, and I mean, it would be it almost jumps the shark of like, we don't like teams that just buy wins, but if one team tries so hard to buy wins and almost ruins the sport, it would almost be like, okay, like I would it would suck, but like let's see what happens. Like, do they win 130 games or something? Probably not really, but like, yeah, I mean, I think that. I don't know what the betting odds on it look like. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure he stays a Yankee. I think he stays a Yankee. There was a report that came out today that someone said that the Mets were going to be a real player and really there's a risk that they poach him. That would be super interesting if he moves across the city and becomes a Met, especially with the Mets kind of on the path that they're on. That would be fun. But I think he stays a Yankee. And then after that, it's how much of good, healthy-ish Giancarlo Stanton do you have? Judge is clearly great. Do the younger guy, someone like Volpe, Oswaldo Cabrera, do these guys ascend? Can they continue to do this, or is it going to have to be like the next round of buying up who's great if they don't get some of the growth from the kids that they would like? But yeah, no, I mean, as far as like chances at repeats, yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. It's tough in baseball, 162 games, stuff can get weird, but I don't think either of these teams would you consider like at the end of the road.
Yeah. Now I wonder, does winning a World Series take the pressure off of keeping Juan Soto? If they lose a World Series, I think there's a lot of pressure to pay whatever it takes to keep him there. Do you think winning a World Series takes the pressure off a little bit in New York, and they maybe don't give as I can't imagine not paying whatever it takes to keep that guy in your roster. Am I making sense?
After the home run that he hit to essentially clinch the ALCS, I think that if whoever wasn't there already, as far as like Yankee people go, whether it's staff or fandom or whomever, I think they're there now. Like that was such an amazing electric at bat. He hits a 3-run home run late in game 5 of the ALCS.
Yeah.
It's a 9-pitch at bat, I think it was. He fouled off several of them. He's talking to himself and biting his lips like a lunatic in between pitches, and then gets a pitch that wasn't even particularly like a bad pitch. It was like a high and away fastball, and puts it right over the wall in right center field. Screen, like full on, doesn't like kind of give a shout while jogging. He stops, a few paces down the first base line, turns 90 degrees, and like shouts into the Yankees bullpen and continues his trot. I mean, it was a maniacal at bat, and that's the experience. That's the guy. He did this in 2019 when like he was still a effectively a child, and helped the Nats to their World Series. He was the same guy. He's already such a good player for 162, and then he amps it up and becomes even more great and even more intense and even more of a crazy person in October. And that's. I think I've seen Yankee fans in years past, complain that this team lacks juice. It's a lot of talented players, but it kind of just lacks like, an engine. And he's that and so much more. So I agree with you. Like, guys got to stick around, pay whatever it takes.
Maybe a dumb question, but it's been, by the time the game happens on Friday, it'll be 6 days from the last time the Yankees played to now. Does that long break matter at all?
It's going to matter for both teams a ton, I think, because of the aforementioned use of the bullpens. I think it actually helps the Dodgers a little more because they're more reliant on their bullpen arms at this point this postseason. But yeah, I think both teams, given how that's gone for them this postseason, I think both teams are more than happy to take the prolonged break.
It's kind of nice. There's going to be no concerns. Like, it's very clear we're seeing both of these teams at their best because of that break. Players like Freddie Freeman, who's day to day, get a little more time to rest and prepare, things like that.
An ankle thing with him has hobbled him for a while now. He played in the NLCS, but I think there was a hit that he had where even Freddie, who's not particularly fast, would have been able to like leg out a double, and there was just no shot. Like he can barely move at this point. He's swinging the bat, but as far as anything like running goes, I mean, even at first he's hobbled. So he's definitely enjoying the rest.
Another maybe dumb question. The Dodgers have home field advantage. They get 4 games. If it's a 7-game series, they'll play more games at home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because they have the better record, or how does that get decided?
It's a better record. Yeah.
It
used to be the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to come back. I love that. I love when All-Star games matter. And that's how it used to decide the home field advantage for the AL and the NL was the All-Star game. No longer. But I would love that. But yeah, no, the Dodgers won 198 games. The Yankees won, I think, 94.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else interests you about this World Series? Like, what should I be asking you that I'm not asking about?
I've mentioned it a few times now, but I'm excited to see how these bullpens work. The Dodgers have leaned a ton on it because of injuries to their starting rotation. We kind of know what that is for them. Like there will have to be a bullpen game in this series, almost certainly. That's interesting, especially on the on a World Series stage against a lineup like this. What I think is kind of a key for the Yankees, and you'd say, well, if you think the bullpen's been shaky for them throughout the season, look at that now. I think it's almost the inverse, where it's like, okay, you kind of know what you're getting out of the bullpen. It's not going to be awesome. It's not terrible by any stretch, but like it's not like the Guardians have the best bullpen in baseball. The Tigers were quite good as well. The Yankees don't have that. So I think a lot of pressure falls on the starting rotation. Like, we need to be able to eat innings up. You can't get blown up in the second, third, fourth inning and come out early. We can't tax this bullpen in a series that we anticipate will probably go 6 or 7 games. Near the end of that, you're going to have guys on limited rest who have thrown a lot of pitches, and I think the Yankees, I think they need to start fast in games. I think they need to be scoring first. They need to be taking some of the pressure off their starting group. And you can't get behind, I think, too early and demand, that the bullpen either pick you up or that you're leaving a starter out there who's getting touched up a little bit. I think that's kind of the key that I'm looking for is like how can the Yankees deal with that and kind of make this transition each game across the series, to their bullpen arms.
If the Yankees win, what will they have done that led to that happening?
Found their power, I think is really what it is. It's like I think that Judge started the postseason really rough. He's come alive a little bit here. Stanton's been exceptional. Soto's been exceptional. I think if they continue to, find their power and hit timely home runs like they have so far, especially in the CS, that'll be the story. Like I think that if they're not finding that, then it's going to be tougher sledding. Because I think the Dodgers are built a little more to be able to like run through the lineup and kind of get 2-out singles with a guy on second and kind of find and generate that offense in a way that the Yankees I think are a little bit more reliant on the home run shot, literally hitting it, not the proverbial way, but quite literally hitting home runs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's and the stylistic contrast is fun too. That's another part of what makes this series I think really exciting.
If the Dodgers win, if the LA Dodgers win, what will they have done that made the difference?
Gotten effective innings out of their relief arms. I think, it's kind of it's a boring answer because it's like do what they've done all year. Like show up in big spots. Ohtani needs to be a star. Play good defense and get effective innings out of your bullpen.
So really, the matchup actually is Dodgers pitching against these incredible power hitters the Yankees have. Is that kind of the matchup that you're looking at most?
I think so. And I think it's pitching on both sides because neither of these, like both these rotations, especially the Dodgers, I would say in terms of health, have guys missing. The Yankees less so. But it's like there's warts on both sides of this where the Dodgers are missing a ton of talent in their pitching rotation, especially their starters. And the Yankees, while they're not missing as many guys, it's just not the most consistent bullpen group. So you can find like things to kind of pick at when it comes to both pitching staffs, and pitching in October is such a big thing. It's hard. It's one of those things where it's like, God, like I said, I think Dodgers in 7. I think that they win that kind of war of attrition. That's like my choice. There isn't a result that goes 6 or 7 games that would like really shock me. I think it's gonna be a long series. Whoever wins it, like I said, I think it's Dodgers. I don't know though. It's tougher for me, I think, to like make a prediction as it is like if this, like your questions, if this happens, why did this happen? I think that's kind of easier to like hone down. But in terms of like looking at this is this way, so this will be the result. I think it's tough because they're both such good teams who do things kind of differently, and it's such a matchup thing.
Yeah. Who do you think would be maybe our World Series MVP? Who do you think is going to maybe be the person that
okay, so we're picking a Dodger here.
Yeah.
We're picking a Dodger here. The unsexy answer is Shohei Ohtani. Like, he just has an amazing series and wins it. I kind of, if you're looking for like, someone who's a little bit more, okay, not Mookie Betts, not Shohei, I like Kike Hernandez.
Why?
He's hit roughly 1 million home runs in October. He's a guy he's a good player. He's a utility player. He plays a million different positions. He can be put kind of anywhere. He's a good player by and large. Like generally, it's like, okay, this is a guy you'd like to have. And then October rolls around, and he's a completely different person. Like he turns it on, and he's a long time postseason performer who's been here a ton, played a lot of postseason games. And I think that he could just like have that moment or like that series of moments where it's like, okay, I don't think a pitcher's going to win it. A lot of times, if a starter gives you 2 really great games in like a 7-game set, then, they're liable to win it. Strasburg in 19 is who I think about when something like that happens, but I don't think a pitcher wins it. So if it's not going to be one of these mega stars we've talked about, and it very well could be because they're mega stars for a reason, but I kind of like Kike Hernandez as like a lookout. Tommy Edman won the NLCS MVP. He was a midseason acquisition. He had played a great CS in those 6 games. Hit a home run in the clinching game 6. and won the series MVP. So for the Dodgers, I think it's more likely to be a guy like that than the Yankees. If the Yankees win the World Series MVP is going to be either Soto or Judge, almost certainly.
Yeah.
If the Dodgers win, I think there's more guys. It could be Teoscar Hernandez, the other Hernandez. He's had a great October. He hit the ball well, and if he sparks for 3 or 4 games randomly, it's like, okay, it could be him. There's a lot of guys where it's like, okay, I can see that.
Why does home field advantage make a difference here? Playing the Dodgers playing 4 of the 7 in their stadium. How can that play a role? Just having the crowd on your side, like I know in football that matters. How does it in baseball play a role? Having home field.
I think it's just
advantage?
Travel. Honestly, I mean, like it's sure they're flying on crazy jets and staying in the nicest hotels, but like you're still got to go 3,000 miles. 3,500 miles. It's a long way to go. Yeah. And you're just, you're playing with comfortability. This is especially like in baseball outfields. Like I think we've talked about it before. Like every outfield is so different. And it's not like these parks have, a green monster or some weird quirk in the outfield. But I think there's just a familiarity. Like these are 2 teams because it's AL, NL and the way baseball schedules are set up. These teams aren't playing each other a lot, especially in each other's field. They're not getting, the Yankees aren't getting a ton of reps at Dodger Stadium and vice versa. So I think just a general comfortability on defense, especially in the outfield, I think is something that might go underlooked at as far as like what can make a difference. But I think beyond even that, it's just travel and being in front of your home crowd.
Yeah. What else should we be talking about? Anything I haven't asked you about that you think is relevant?
What do you think? So if Shohei Ohtani, if the Dodgers don't win this, and Ohtani continue, it's first season on a team that's actually halfway decent. Yeah. He's still young. There's a lot of time left for him, obviously, to keep breaking this game. Do you, as someone who is getting into it but isn't an everyday baseball watcher, who is acknowledging Shohei's abilities, do you think that any sort of like pressure on him, the way that we put pressure on stars to win rings, would be like warranted?
No, I think maybe this is just my unique perspective. I got to acknowledge I often don't align with the general population. Like
rings, like
everyone hates, the Chiefs, and I'm loving it. I want to see them win 3 in a row. So I know that I don't always align with the norm, but to me, the Yankees have to win. The pressure's all on them, the team they've built. And if Shohei doesn't win, it's like, well, it's year 1. Like, he's got a lot of years in a Dodgers uniform to make this happen. The fact that in year 1 they got here is just a cherry on top. It's like, no, he's going to be, I'm certain he's going to be back. This is year 1 of many. And again, the way they structured his contract was so that they could pay people around him now and pay him on the back end later, understanding that we want to get to World Series, and not one, but many of them. So to me,
for those who don't know,
many.
Yeah, Zach's alluded to it a few times, but for those who don't know, Shohei Ohtani signed a $700 million contract with the Dodgers, which is mind-boggling. But I don't think the numbers have officially come out, but a gigantic percentage of that, 90+% of that or more, is deferred. So he'll be paid. It's like Bobby Bonilla. He'll be paid after the contract's up, which, as far as the cap goes, because baseball, while it does have, essentially no salary cap, the money is tracked still, and teams that go over a certain dollar amount are taxed, similar to the NBA. They can keep spending if they want to keep spending tax dollars on that, but they are taxed and they're hit with a fee if you are spending a ton of money. So what Shohei has done is, while that deferred money doesn't help their cap and tax situation, it allows ownership to pay him less in cash right now, which keeps the kind of organizational free cash flow a lot lighter, so that that ownership, the actual individuals writing checks, have more money in their quote unquote bank accounts to work with to acquire more players, if they're okay with paying, baseball's version of a luxury tax, which I'm sure they will continue to be fine with that, given that they're the Dodgers and they're winning games. But yeah, that's what Zach mentions when this contract is allowed. Shohei is being paid essentially $0. I think it's like a couple of $1 million a year on a $700 million deal.
It's like $2 million.
It's virtually nothing. He's getting paid like end of the bench type money to be Shohei Ohtani, and it allows $50+ million a year of actual cash flow to be available for Dodgers ownership to continue to get good players.
Yeah. I think there's more pressure on Dave Roberts, the manager, to get it done. I think if they don't win, maybe he's a question mark, right? I mean, I think it's hard to fire a guy who loses a World Series, but he's had a storied history.
A checkered past of mismanagement in big games.
Yeah, if they lose, he's the guy probably to take the fall. I don't think anyone puts the blame on Shohei. And I think that the Yankees can, all right, maybe the better word, the Dodgers can survive losing. Like the Dodgers roster can get away with losing more than the Yankees can. I just think the pressure's on the manager, Dave Roberts, who I think would take the fall.
Baseball's funny, right? Because it's a game of independent events. And that's what pitching is. It's what a pitch and a batted ball is. And it's in a way that doesn't exist in other sports where, in football, if you've got a stretch handoff to one side and a guy 9 yards away from the handoff point blows a block, and then that run play doesn't go anywhere because of that, you might see it on replay, but it's like, oh, so a guy far enough away from the play made a mistake that ended up making the play go negatively. Whereas like in baseball, obviously there's defense, but until the ball is put in play, there's three people. It's pitcher, catcher, hitter. So every event is so independent of the previous one because there's not other factors on a pitch-by-pitch basis influencing that. And where I'm going with this is the idea that, like, because you're right, like managers take the fall for things like this. But if Dave Roberts manages a completely like acceptable series and they lose in 7, and the reason that they lost in 7 or a big reason they lose in 7 is because like Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani combine to go like 2 for 33 or something, and they slump and they're not getting their production out of their stars, or they get their bullpen gets blown up in 2 different games, or something happens that is like outside of the control of Dave Roberts as a manager. Decent chance he still gets flack for it, even though his star guys who got them there, who brought them to the dance, 7 bad games and you're out of this thing and it's your fault, when he could have managed a perfectly good game otherwise. You're not going to take those guys out, right? You're not going to bench them, so what's a guy to do? Yeah. But it's funny how it works like that.
Yeah, I'm just excited, man. I think it's going to be, again, I go back to this every time. This time of year is the most fun in baseball. The at-bats are long and meaningful, intense, and I'm just glad we're getting the 2 best teams. It really does feel that way. Not every year does that happen. Even in other sports, like you look at back at old teams, like, man, like that team really missed their opportunity. And I'm glad that the 2 best ones are here representing the AL and NL. What else you want to add to this conversation?
I hope we get 7. I hope that the storybook series lead up to this, and the storybook series that this is kind of supposed to be, I hope it delivers. Like I was looking at odds to bet on there being at least 1 extra inning game, because that feels like a certainty that we're going to get 1 crate. It feels like this might be the series where we get one of those, like the Red Sox had one several years back where they had like a 19 inning playoff game. I mean, that's a lot, but like I could definitely see there being this like crazy 13, 14 inning marathon type game.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any outcome that's like, whoa, that's crazy. Like it feels like this is going to be set up like a movie. Like this has been a collision course all season, and it feels like the kind of baseball gods fearing part of me is like, there's no way we get this far and then it goes like 5 games and none of them are close.
Yeah,
like this has to end the way that it should end, which is like a 7-game heavyweight fight with an extra innings game or 2 and like drama.
I think that does ask the question, though, if one of these teams does win in blowout fashion, say a 4-1 series, is it the Yankees or the Dodgers? Which team do you see if there was a team that win in a blowout? I know it'd be shocking. Which one would it be? Probably the Yankees, right?
See, I almost think the Dodgers. Like, I almost think that like it might a blowout series in the sense that it ends 4-1, but like 5 games that are close and low scoring. And I think you see that if like the Yankees bats just go cold. If you just get like if the Yankees power hitting just has like a bad week, because it's all it takes is literally 1 week of like just of being kind of cold.
Yeah,
and you're cooked. So I think if it ends up being where it's a fewer than 6 game set, anything could happen. But I think I would be more, if you told me this series is going to go 5 games, I'm not going to tell you the result of the scores, but it's going to go 5 games. I would say the most likely result is that the Dodgers won a bunch of low scoring games and the Yankees couldn't find their bats.
That's a good answer. That's why I brought you on, man. That's all I got on baseball. I'm curious if you want to talk football for a moment.
I'd love to.
What do you make of what's going on with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers? I've really enjoyed watching his failure. I'm not going to lie. He comes across. I actually, when he went to the Jets, I was really excited. I was rooting for him. I watched the Hard Knocks season, and I loved him. I loved Robert Saleh. And the more it's gone on, the more it's been like, oh, this is really bad. And I saw him. He did take accountability today. He said, I got to play better. But he comes across as really unlikable. The 2-5 record is pretty funny. The 7 interceptions is enjoyable. What do you make of what's going on with the Jets right now?
So I'm going to run something by you that some friends in the group chat were talking about this last weekend. 4 MVPs, that obviously speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Ton of Pro Bowls. If he retires with 1 ring, which is obvious, I mean, I know you know, rings thing, whatever. We just talked about that. Could you argue that despite the MVPs and despite the fact that he does have a ring and a Super Bowl MVP, just as raw talent goes, is it disappointing as a career? It has to be, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with Aaron Rodgers always was, well, you got to get him out of Green Bay. He's locked away in Green Bay. They don't have an owner. He's in the wrong organization. Well, we've seen him in the right organization, and he's clearly gotten his way a lot. And the thing with the Packers never listened to him. They never he didn't have an owner he could appeal to kind of get his will. Well, he's gotten whatever he wants in New York, and they're 2-5, and it's not working. Now, the Achilles injury really threw off the timeline of everything, but you know, Molly, my girlfriend, Molly is not a football whiz. She knows, she's actually new to the game and learning, but she was kind of like, he should have walked away when he was on top. He should have left when he left the Packers. He should have just retired and walked into the sunset. He would have made less money, but he wouldn't have hurt his reputation. I think the longer he's playing with the Jets and the worse it's going, actually, the worse he's hurting is his legacy, to be honest. So, unless he can turn it around, and maybe the Jets turn it around and win 10 games this year, and he comes back next year and they do make a Super Bowl appearance or something. But right now, 7 games into 2024, his second year with the Jets, that doesn't feel possible at all. So I think so far, all he's done with the Jets has hurt his legacy.
Yeah, I agree. And even near the end of his Green Bay run, there were some press conferences after they had lost to the Niners in the divisional round in 2021. He's not a guy that willingly takes a lot of blame, and that bothers me. And yeah. I know that I'm sure that has manifested itself in his dealings as his time in Green Bay ended, which is why I think this is awesome, because I do think that he's generally unlikable, and I know that a lot of people have come around to not liking him because of some of his stances during COVID, and that's not really what we're here to talk about. But I've been a Rodgers, I'm not going to say hater, but like one step below hater, like for a while now, because I just think that he's not I think he's absolutely amazing as a thrower of the football and as a player of the quarterback position, but I think that he's just kind of a piss poor leader. Yeah, and I think it's a waste.
He's a talent. Like he threw a ball to Garrett Wilson in that game against the Steelers the other day on a rope down the left sideline that hits Garrett Wilson in the shoulder pads and bounces off and gets picked off and returned to like the 5-yard line. And you're like, well, that's a perfect throw. Like, I can acknowledge the talent. What I hate about Aaron Rodgers, he's been given so many opportunities to handle situations differently than he has. I grew up watching Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady, my idols. And they always took accountability, and frankly, extreme accountability, even when things weren't their fault. And as a leader, it's your job to bear the brunt. You're getting paid way more than everyone else around you. You're the face of the franchise. You don't point fingers at Mike Williams. You say, I got to be better. You take the flack, even if it's not your fault. In my job every day, I work in sales, which means I'm kind of the point man for the company. And if I don't sell equipment, everyone that does installs doesn't have work for the week. Like I have to get my guys work, meaning if I'm not performing, it's on me. And if something goes wrong and that affects them, I have to take ownership, even if it's not my fault. I took pictures of it. I did everything I could. It's like, well, no, I got to be better. I always try to take whatever blame I can to just say, I could have been better. I could have made this go more smoothly, and bear that because I make a little bit more money and I've got a little bit more responsibility and ownership over what happens. That's the job. I try to treat myself like a quarterback every day at my job and my profession. Quarterback bears the weight of responsibility. And Aaron, when given opportunities so many times, has not taken on the brunt of the responsibility. And that is hard for me to respect. As a former quarterback, a guy who played in college, and even like you saw me, I had a pretty frustrating, I tried to coach football recently and it went badly. In my conversations with you, man, I try to take ownership of like, I could have been better here and there. I've tried to own my part in it. And I just think that as a leader, Aaron has really failed to take accountability for the things that are going wrong and pointing way too many fingers at other people.
Yeah, I agree. That's perfect. No notes. Like, I think it's tougher for me to make excuses for a guy like that. There's a lot of guys, I've made excuses for Tony Romo, a man I love very much, for most of my life, frankly, and I will continue to, because I think that he's, the guys you listed are the more kind of quintessential modern examples of the leader at quarterback. But I think that,
well, here's a different example, if I may. Kirk Cousins takes accountability all the time. All even things that are clearly not his fault, he'll take ownership of. And you're like, well, that's a leader. That's a guy people want to play with and fight for.
You like that.
You do. You like that. Well, do you watch the TV show Love is Blind?
Yes. Not this season.
There's you should watch this season. There's a woman named Hannah. She dates a guy named Nick. Slight spoiler, I don't care. Hannah is really, really awful to Nick, the way she treats him. And Nick looks very afraid around her. Like he's got lots of opportunities to, like cooking pasta, for example. He's asking all these dumbass questions. And it's like, well, because he doesn't feel safe. Yeah. He doesn't feel like he's in an environment where he can ask questions and get good feedback. Yeah. I think Aaron is probably similar to work with, where you're not safe to ask questions and operate and ask for clarification. He's going to punish you and attack you for what he would consider a dumb question. He's not a safe person to operate around. I would hate to work with. If that's true, that's a big assumption, what I just said. But that's how he comes across. And if that's true, that's not the leader you want running your football team. And I think when you're 2-5 and you have the talent they have, it's clear that leadership, like every week you hear the Jets say, we got to be better. Details got to, like, they're always talking about the things they should be doing differently and then not making changes. And I think it's because their leadership is the problem. And who's the leader of that football team? It's very clear that's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, agreed. I picked them to do well this season. I thought they would. And by well, I mean, maybe not 13 and 4 or whatever, but well. And it's not looking like we're going to get there. And kind of reveling in it, despite the fact that it's looking like I'm going to be wrong. Because for all the reasons you said, I think that this is the just desserts that have been coming to Aaron for a long time. And I think that most people agree. And I like that the pressure's getting there. As a, hater.
Here's a weird one that I think will be really a fun conversation we can have briefly. Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers is 3-4. It appears like he's never quite made it over the hump. He's gotten to multiple Super Bowls. It hasn't worked out. Is it multiple Super? At least one. I think it's been multiple though.
Lost the Chiefs twice.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm like cracking my brain. I'm like, am I crazy? It is too, right? So they've gotten close. They haven't made it happen. If you look at the route that his career has taken and compare it to the early career of Andy Reid, it's actually like eerily similar. The one thing about, Kyle Shanahan, I will say in his favor, he's never had the guy. He's never had the quarterback. You're like, oh my gosh, he's got a Josh Allen, a Jordan Love, I don't know, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, whatever you want, CJ Stroud. He just never had a guy like that, or Lamar Jackson. I'm really interested to see if he ever parts ways with the 49ers, where he goes and what kind of impact he can have. Because I think with a team like, I think about Kyle Shanahan and the Jaguars organization with Trevor Lawrence, That's a really interesting conversation. Like that's a team I would love to see. Do you think there's ever a time he could leave? Or I don't know what that looks like. Like Andy Reid and the Eagles parted ways in kind of an awkward way. And everyone knew Andy Reid was a good coach and going to win somewhere else, but it just wasn't going to happen in Philly anymore. Do you see a similar path for Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers where we like you? You're obviously good. We feel like we've hit a ceiling. We're going to move on. Is that a crazy take? Is that a crazy question to ask?
I don't think if that happened, I don't think it would be the Niners doing it. Like I think that it's very easy for Shanahan to sell his situation as one of like, yeah, lost a couple Super Bowls, but Jimmy and Brock, like, come on, man. Like, what do you want me to do? Is to Pat Mahomes twice? Like, come on.
Yeah.
So I think if he's not the coach of the Niners in any like semi soon time frame, it would be him. The outcome that I think you would find is that the team gets old and expensive. The window kind of closes. They never get over the hump, as you've said. And instead of working through that, he tries to take up refuge on a ready-made team who is firing its coach. And by ready-made, I mean like a tier 2 team that has some pieces that are looking for the next. Like that feels like what his next destination would be, frankly.
Yeah, let's say if Matt Eberflus got fired in Chicago, he'd happily slide into that role and be the coach of the Bears.
Something like that, or like even like a half step up from where the Bears are. And the Bears, not even like a bad team by any stretch. I don't think personally they're rot quarterback clearly, and they've got some things to figure out. But like, it's not a stretch that the Bears are a good team in a few years.
I think they might be a good team now. I think you could argue that. I'm not saying they are, but I think you could argue that they are.
But like a really good team, like we are going to try to win. Like we are in divisional contention this year, and we're trying to really make a push right now. Yeah, that feels like the situation where Shanahan's not on the Niners sidelines. I don't think like Jacksonville. Like I just don't see that. Like I think that there's too many questions surrounding who Trevor Lawrence is, and even if he ends up being better than I think a lot of people think he is right now, there's again that's far from ready made. Like there's not a lot there. So I personally wouldn't think Jacksonville. It would be interesting to see how that would happen. And I think you just use it as an example, right? There's no like smoke of Shanahan to Jacksonville.
No, but I imagine like the Bengals being coached by Kyle Shanahan with Joe Burrow, like would be, oh man,
it'd be hellacious. Yeah,
I would love to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, like who knows what happens with if they continue to kind of do the same thing and kind of just plod and have this really great roster and playmakers up and down, and you kind of just never quite get there, despite the fact that they also made and lost the Super Bowl. I wonder if the same conversation happens for Zach Taylor.
I think this comes up because the 49ers are 3-4 and they're all injured, it seems like. And you're like, hey, is this the end? Is this the end of this window? Like, is McCaffrey going to come back? Brandon Ayuk's now, out for the year. It's just injuries are piling up. Brock Purdy's going to have to get paid at some point. Who knows how much that is?
This felt like the year because you've got cheap Purdy right now. And I don't think it's even like some sort of organizational or coaching mishap. The entire team's dead. Like what do you do at this point? I mean, they've caught this run of off, and I'm a Niners hater. I'm a Cowboys fan. I have to hate the Niners, but like even I can recognize like this is a loaded for bear team that has hit the ultimate injury bug this year. And if they never quite right the ship and they end like 500, like okay, I would think it would be funny because again, Cowboys fan, but I think we all would know why. Yeah, this is not a 9-8 team.
Well, the ticking time bomb that I think gets forgotten a lot, but does matter a lot. Their left tackle Trent Williams is 36 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to play forever. At some point, he's going to retire and walk away, and that's going to be a bigger loss than anyone's talking about. We talk about the injuries, we talk about paying Brock Purdy, but like, dude, that offense without Trent Williams is a really, really different offense.
Yeah, agreed. And I agree. I think that is. No one likes to talk about offensive line. It sucks. No one likes to talk about it. But yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Like that's short of just what the Purdy money does to their cap sheet, I think that the looming Trent Williams retirement is like the second biggest thing that they have to look at in terms of like what the team looks like going forward. I've gotten a lot of heat. I think we've talked about it. We talked about it on this show. I think I've gotten some heat from people that I've talked to in my life about how I feel about Brock Purdy. I've said the entire time, I think the dude's just like kind of okay. And, the pushback that I've gotten a lot has been, what do you want him to do? Like not throw to open receivers? Do you want him to not throw to Christian McCaffrey? Do you like what? It's like, well, no, but the mark of someone who's truly great, in my opinion, at the position is someone who can make players better. If you're maintaining status quo by putting up good numbers and winning games, throwing to really good guys and having a really easy situation on offense, you're doing what you should be doing. You're doing your job, and that means something for sure. But I wouldn't be quick to say that you are, in the upper tier of quarterbacks. And now, when all this has happened, again, through no fault of Brock Purdy's, that everybody around him is dropping like flies, they're not winning games, and he's not putting up numbers, and he's not looking like the player that he was before. And it's like kind of proving the point that like, yeah, no, he's not bad because he's not bad, and he's not bad because he's not playing well. I'm just not going to anoint him because he is in the easiest situation, in my opinion, to succeed in all of football. And now he's not anymore, and now he's not playing like he was. So what does that mean, Niners fans? I don't know, but a lot of people have gotten mad at me.
I think a lot of things can be true all at the same time.
I agree.
Which, I think he has done some good stuff that not everyone can do. I think that you have to acknowledge that.
Of course.
But he also has had, the benefit of driving a Lamborghini. And it's really easy to win a race when you're driving the fastest car. And then on top of that, what makes him special is that you're paying him nothing. Mm-hmm. And once that advantage goes away, suddenly you look at him a lot differently. And that's
because he's not the last pick of the draft anymore, right? When he signs that contract, he's no longer he's no longer Mr. Relevant. He's no longer the plucky upstart who's winning games with the Niners. He has a huge contract, and with that comes huge expectations. And you have to lift guys at that point.
I feel very comfortable giving him 5 years, $100 million, $20 million here. Now that's actually $10 million a year in his pocket, probably because of California taxes, which is pretty brutal. But I think a cap hit of $20 or $30 million a year for Brock Purdy makes a lot of sense. That's about what Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith make a year.
He's going to get so much more.
And that when you start talking about paying him more than Baker or Geno, I go, see,
Baker and Geno, like that feels like that feels too low to even discuss. Like It's going to be a lot more. I think it's going to be huge. And I think it's going to look bad the day that the before the ink dries. It's going to look bad.
Yeah,
but it's the cost of doing business these days.
Let's end with the Green Bay Packers. It's funny. We could have talked about them earlier. I thought about it. After Aaron Rodgers, look where the Packers are. They're actually sitting great, which I think actually reflects more poorly on Aaron than anything else. But they got an awesome young coach. They got Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator, who left the Boston College head coaching job to be their defensive coordinator. He appears to have fixed their defense. The young quarterback Jordan Love is playing awesome. I think they're one of the, if not, I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. I would give that to the Detroit Lions, but they're right there at 2 or 3. They're 5-2 right now. The Packers are awesome. They just beat Houston. It was a great win. What do you make of them, and what do you make of their future? Because I just look at Green Bay and go, man, they're set for a long time, I think. I know they're paying their quarterback a ton of money, but he's earning it every week, and I love their coach, and they got a coach who looks like he could be there for his entire career, basically. I look at Green Bay and think they're set, and I think a lot of other fan bases around the NFL would kill for the setup they've got in Green Bay. What say you?
The biggest hurdle is who they play in a division with. I mean, they're 5-2. They're third in their own division right now. Like, it's nutty. As far as, kind of in jest, obviously, I think that. Am I just slow? And I know we're talking about Green Bay. I don't want to derail. Am I slow to adapt to the Vikings actually being a 5-1 team?
No. Here's what I would say.
The defense is incredible. It's incredible, but it still just feels like they're not a 5-1 team. And Minnesota fans, I'm sorry, but I don't know.
Well, I actually think that the Packers, who are 5-2, are more set up to have success long term than either Detroit or Minnesota. Detroit is about to lose. We think their offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. That's going to hurt a little bit. Jared Goff is 30, so he's not old. He's he could probably play 10 more years, I think. So
Yeah.
he's not going anywhere anytime soon. But Ben Johnson leaving feels significant. The Vikings, there's rumors they're looking at trading for Matthew Stafford, which feels insane. I'm like, what are you just drafted JJ McCarthy. You got Sam Darnold. You're going to add a third quarterback into this confusing situation you got at quarterback. And then, Brian Flores, our defensive coordinator, is crushing it, but he's a coordinator who feels like could leave any day now if he gets another opportunity to be a head coach. So I think the team that's set up to succeed the most for the longest is actually probably the Packers. I think Jeff Hafley, part of taking that job in Green Bay was him looking around and going, hey, coaching in college sucks. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of instability. You know where I get stability? Dominating as the Packers defensive coordinator. You got a head coach, Matt LaFleur, who's not going anywhere anytime soon. And if you want job security, go be the defensive coordinator of the Packers and do well, because they're never going to get rid of you. You could coach there for 20 years and do a great job and really have a stability offer to your family, which I think is, people don't realize how rare that is in the coaching world, to give your family a situation where they can be in the same school for 10 years and never have to move. Like, that just doesn't happen in the coaching ranks. And Green Bay is one of the few places where that actually is possible if you're doing well. And he is, and he left Boston College for a reason. So I think actually Green Bay set up to succeed for the longest period of time of any team, maybe in the NFC, maybe in the NFL, outside of the maybe Chiefs or something like that. But even Andy Reid's getting older. So the Packers, what they got is a young core of people that look like they could be there for 10 to 15 years. Every other team in that division has less stability than what they have. I look at the Packers and go, man, I would kill to have their situation long term. It would be incredible.
What do you make of that future situation as the Love extension hits and as things start to get expensive for them? I mean, the jump for him isn't insane next year. But into 26, 27, 28, like, that's going to get really pricey for them.
Well, I have no concerns for this reason. A, I think the salary cap's going to keep going up.
That's true.
And then B, everyone's going to have this problem. The Cowboys are going to have this problem. The Bengals are going to have this problem. The Browns will have this problem. The Ravens, the Bills, every team that paid a quarterback in the Jaguars, every team's going to have this problem. If you're going to have that problem, you might as well have a good quarterback, and they certainly do. So I'd rather pay a quarterback a ton of money and have to deal with the consequence of having a good, expensive quarterback than be what Carolina is, be what, I think the Giants are, or like the Giants are really screwed. They paid a quarterback who can't play. Same with Cleveland. So if you're going to pay a guy who can play, I'm happy. I think that's fine. I'd rather be, I think the Packers actually are the most, I would consider myself a Steelers fan. Russell Wilson is shaky long-term. Mike Tomlin's getting older. I'd kill to have the stability the Packers have, which is a good quarterback who's young, a coach who's young and going to be there for a long time and really good, and on the offense side of the football, so your offense is secure with your quarterback. I just think the Packers have the most enviable position maybe in the entire NFL. And again, I really think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 2 years from now, Jeff Hafley takes a head coaching job. I think he took that job with the plan of being there for a long time and giving what almost no coach in football has, which is long-term job stability.
That's fair. Yeah. And you make a ton of points, regarding just what's there. Even Detroit, who I think is set up to be successful right now, but you make a point with Ben Johnson, and I think Goff's there for the long haul, but Goff is kind of one of those like tier 2.5 quarterback type guys where it's like, okay, he's...
Oh, no. I want to push back there actually peacefully. I think we have to change our opinion of Jared Goff, and we'll see if that sustains after Ben Johnson
I say
leaves.
that not as a pejorative on Jared Goff. I hesitate to put him in this like Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow group.
No, I think he's the next quarterback after the top couple quarterbacks. I would say are Patrick Mahomes, obviously, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Right? It's those four guys. I think Goff is 5 or 6. Actually, I know that's maybe crazy. I don't mind that. I think
probably
we have
not where
to.
I'd have him, but I'd also defer to you for quarterback stuff.
Well, here's why, and I think I'm ahead of the curve a little bit, but I think we have a hard time separating from the past of people. I've heard people talk about
that's fair.
A lot of quarterbacks. Like people still talk about Jalen Hurts' year he was benched at Alabama. It's like, well, he's certainly not the best quarterback in football. He's not the guy he was as a freshman at Alabama. Like, you got to separate from the past and get rid of that in your head. Jared Goff in the last couple weeks has had like 2 or 3 incompletions constantly. Like, he's just crushing it. Some of that's coaching, some of that's him just dialed in. The thing I would hesitate with Jared Goff is what happens if Ben Johnson leaves, right? And that's why he's not up in the conversation with everyone else. I think why he's more like 6'7", 5, 6, 7, something like that.
So I mean, Hurts, Herbert, Prescott, Cousins, like all those guys are below him to you.
Yeah, I'd put him the very best second-tier quarterback in football.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know that's a weird way to put that.
No,
but
I that tracks 100%. Okay.
yeah, he's not in the same league as Patrick Mahomes, but man, I think Lions Chiefs would be an unbelievable Super Bowl. That Monday Night Football game where, you know, the Rams played the Chiefs a couple years ago and Ibukam had 2 touchdowns and it was just like this incredible 50. I can't remember what the score was, but like some incredible high scoring game.
Nuts.
I think Chiefs Lions would give us a game like that. And we would all be talking the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl about that Monday night matchup a couple years ago. And I think we might see something similar in the Super Bowl this year if that happens.
You know, you can lump me in with the group of people who are kind of over Kansas City right now. So if that did happen, you know, go Lions, I suppose. It'd be a fun game though. Absolutely.
Can I pitch you on Kansas City?
You can try.
I think on paper, the Ravens are better in the AFC. I think Buffalo's really trying hard to catch up to them. I don't think they're quite there. Kansas City has the best quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't care about stats. I know he's not playing the best right now, or at least on paper. He threw 2 interceptions this past week where one is tipped to the line, one is a great throw that got dropped, right? And on paper, those are 2 picks. In reality, those are 2 good decisions where you got some bad luck. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers had an interception last week where he threw a perfect ball and it got dropped. It's hard to hold stats against a person. They've had incredible turnover at receiver. You know, the plan they went into the year with has absolutely not played out on paper because, you know, Hollywood Brown's out, Rashee Rice is now out, Juju Smith-Schuster's out. They've now traded for DeAndre Hopkins. My point is, like, they've had so much turnover at receiver, and yet every week they find a way to put together a good enough offense to win. The defense is incredible. They got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid on the offensive side of the football. They just traded for DeAndre Hopkins. And I think what I've learned in my career, there are tweets from like 2015 when LeBron James turned 30 years old, people saying, oh, God, oh, good. Like, LeBron's turning 30. We're at the end of this hopefully soon. And it's 10 years later and he's crushing it still. I remember when Tom Brady was getting older, people kept doubting him, saying it's the end of Tom Brady and he goes to Tampa and wins another Super Bowl. And I was like, I all along was believing in Tom Brady. And I said, hey, you should believe in him until he shows you why he's not going to succeed. Same with LeBron James. I've learned, like, LeBron James is a player you don't count out until he gives you a reason to do that. Until then, don't believe that. The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are 6-0. They're the only undefeated team in football. And their offense has not gone to plan. Again, like I said, things have been a disaster. Hollywood Brown's out. Rashee Rice is out. It's been crazy what's happened to them and what they've had to overcome. And yet they're still the team with the best record in football. There's been no reason to doubt Kansas City. And until there's a reason to believe otherwise, until they lose and it seems like it's affecting them, they should be the favorite every year in football.
Yeah, I because of the Ravens at this point, I would have a hard time calling them the favorite right now, personally.
You don't think the Ravens have to get the monkey off their back and beat the team that just repeatedly have failed to do that against in the playoffs? Like, how many times have they run into the buzzsaw that is Patrick Mahomes and been sent home in the playoffs? I mean, that's the reality of it, right? Is that
and Lamar Jackson's got to be better in the playoffs than he has been.
But the Ravens have to be viewed as the underdog because they've earned that right. They've earned the position of, I don't believe in the Ravens until they prove otherwise. And the opposite is true for Kansas City, where they've shown it over and over again. Hey, this team defies all odds constantly.
Yeah, I see that. I think heading into a season, I mean, and you know, to your point, Kansas City is 6-0. Like, they're the only undefeated team. The defense has been exceptional, one of the best in the league, and the offense, you know, despite some of the hiccups, hasn't been like all that bad. Certainly not great by their standards, but far from bad. You know, I don't know.
I remember the Chiefs beat the Ravens week 1.
Yeah, but like week 1 and then a potential matchup later on, like that's you're how many months down the road at this point? Like they're different teams. Like
Man, I feel like that's
even like a week 13 matchup is like, okay, these teams played 2 months ago. Like week 1, like I mean, yeah, but even like to your point, like with Kansas City, like the guys that were and this would seek to make Kansas City look better in this hypothetical. So touche, but the team is different now, and it will be different in late December or whatever than it was week 1.
Well, I would argue I hear you just struggling to give credit to a team that has given us no reason to doubt them. Honestly, they're 6-0, and they added DeAndre Hopkins, which I think is excuse me. DeAndre Hopkins has never played in a good organization. It's the best quarterback he's ever had. I know he's 32 years old, but like, man,
with a looming injury history,
I think this could be quietly a move that we go, oh no, how did we let that happen? And then also by the end of the year, there's talk that Hollywood Brown could be back in time for a playoff appearance. So
that feels more I mean, that feels far more impactful. I say this as like a massive DeAndre Hopkins fan for his essentially entire career, even back in college when he was at Clemson. The history is not great for guys that are into their 30s with injury histories.
Sure. Had 1,000 yards last year, 75 catches and 1,000 yards.
Yeah. I know he's had some lower body stuff this year, which is not awesome. He came into the season dinged up, and I don't think he's actually I don't think he's come off the injury report. He's played, but and when you're 32, you don't practice on Wednesdays. But if it makes you feel any better, I do think it's not going to surprise me if it's the Chiefs coming out of the AFC. Like, don't get me wrong. If we are looking at a Chiefs Super Bowl, I'm hardly going to be surprised. And I think that it's Baltimore and KC, and then like a big delta, and then everyone else.
I'll say this: if it wasn't the history we've seen with Kansas, if it was Minnesota doing what Kansas City's doing, right, I would not believe in them the way I do. But because it's it's history, the context of history. To me, there's 3 teams in football that feel like they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl. It's Detroit in the NFC, and then it's Kansas City or Baltimore in the AFC. And one of those 3 teams right now feels like they're going to win the Super Bowl. Maybe more can emerge. Maybe Minnesota can, gain more respect as the year goes on. Maybe the Packers can emerge. But right now, one of those 3 teams look like they're primed to win the Super Bowl this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, that tracks. I think. I mean, the Lions. have even in their loss, like they've the way Jesus Christ, the way they decimated Dallas.
Forgot, but you're a Cowboys fan. You saw that up front and personal.
But like I will say, I mean, okay, we're looking at history. The Lions lost a very close NFC Championship with the Niners last year. It was 34-31. Prior to that, this is a team that hasn't won a playoff game since like Reagan.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I see, I understand, and I agree with you for the most part. What you're saying, there's kind of an organizational thing with Kansas City and with other teams that are bad. It's like you look at the Jets. There's like organizational stuff that happens in these teams. You'd call them curses if you couldn't pin it down to like usually ownership or leadership in some way. I mean, even Dallas, Jesus. But short of a team that is, I think, really, really like exceptionally good and has turned around in just the last 3 years the way they have in Detroit, we haven't seen a playoff, and we haven't even seen the playoffs short of a couple of appearances here and there before last year. So I think they're the best team in the NFC. But again, if we're looking at who do we like to go all the way, who do you think can do it out of each conference? There's hardly a history for Detroit.
Yeah. That makes sense, man. Well, I guess who's your favorite other than Baltimore to win the Super Bowl?
Kansas City. Like it's that's what I said. That's what I said a second ago. Like it's the 2 of them.
Yeah.
In the NFC. Yeah. Like I mean,
in the NFC, it's got to be Detroit, right?
I think so. Like yeah, I think so. I think it almost speaks to like, I don't want to say the weakness of the NFC because I don't think it's weak. It's just
there's no clear. Yeah,
there's not a lot you can hang your hat on in the NFC. It's like there's not a lot of like that's like what you're saying with KC, the kind of like an institutional like confidence.
Well, look around the Eagles and the Cowboys don't look dominant.
No,
The Falcons look really weak and at times have been outplayed by Tampa, who now is banged up. But if Tampa was healthy, they would probably be the favorites to win the NFC South. Actually, there's
I
no
agree.
clear favorite. Like Seattle, I think leads the NFC West, but I don't trust them at all.
I don't know who's scared of Seattle at this point. Like,
Yeah.
they're truly scared.
The
Like,
49ers are banged up. Like it's really Detroit and everyone else, followed by the Packers and the Vikings, the Bears. Actually, like the four best teams in the NFC might be the entire NFC North. Honestly, their records reflect that, but also like they've been the most consistently good. The Bears have a great defense. I mean, it just feels inevitable it's going to be Detroit, and if not Detroit, someone else out of that division.
it feels like it
winning
would be
the
like the
NFC.
Niners waiting in the wings with a team that slowly gets healthy across the rest of the season, and maybe
Well,
they.
maybe.
I mean,
maybe.
If they end up getting to like 9 wins and they kind of limp into the postseason, but as they've done this, they've gotten guys back
Yeah.
and they get some ramp up for McCaffrey, and obviously Ayuk not getting back, but if you can keep Debo healthy without pneumonia, my goodness.
Well, I don't mean to play, online doctor, right? But my Molly is a nurse. Her mom works for a pharmaceutical company. Her mom has, got a medical degree. They talk about the injury Christian McCaffrey has as if he might not ever play football again. Like, and they acknowledge, hey, they don't think he's going to play this year. And they acknowledge, hey, he's got better resources than the average human does when it comes to medical help.
Mhm.
But the way they talk about what, McCaffrey's going through, they're like, yeah, we don't think he's coming back this year and maybe never again. So that's pretty alarming to me. That
if he's not playing, then they might win some games. They'll win some games if they get everybody back healthy except for him. They're going to win some games. They're going to make the playoffs. They'd probably win a playoff game. I think the Super Bowl hopes are dashed if you're saying he doesn't come back,
or if he comes back just to shelve himself, which I think is also possible.
Yeah, like absolutely
trying an effort, but not
if
the
he
same.
comes back at 60% or something, it's like this isn't the same guy. Then yeah, I agree. I think that will stick the fork in any real chance, which would open the door for a team like you're mentioning, like Detroit and Green Bay, perhaps.
Let's end with this. I'll just throw it to you. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Anything we haven't hit on that interests you? Nothing. Okay.
32-31.
You were going to say nothing, but no, I think I'm realizing that means the Oregon Ducks, doesn't it? Dude, you're a Duck fan. I forget. You're the number one team in the country.
You said it would be a multi-score game.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you.
I can't believe they won. I thought it was so cool that the Ducks beat Ohio State. I think it was frankly a landmark moment for Dan Lanning, and I think they look like a team that can't really get pulled off number one anytime soon either. You look at the rest of their schedule.
The schedule lines up well to be able to head into the postseason at number one. I mean, it's far from like cupcakes. You've got to go to Camp Randall to play Wisconsin in the winter.
Play Illinois is really good this weekend.
You got to play Illinois, they're a ranked team. I think Illinois, their defense is kind of fraudulent, but they're a ranked team. You're playing them at home. You got to go to Michigan to play in the Big House. It's never fun, even though Michigan's not that good this year either.
Yeah, Washington,
and then a home game against UW, who has a good defense as well. The offense is bad. These games, they're going to be favored significantly in all or most of these games, and they should win all these games. But it's far from like you're not playing nobodies. And
I think we see a rematch against Ohio State probably in the Big Ten title game.
The only way that falters is if they drop either the game against Michigan, or which I don't think they will, or if Penn State gets the better of them, and I don't think that'll happen either. But that's two real tests for Ohio State. And the only reason I said it's a test for Ohio State for Michigan and not as much for Oregon is because of the rivalry that comes with that. That's a game that Michigan's going to play and has played differently, even when they are a lesser team. It's one of the most bitter rivalries in the country, so that game's going to go a little bit different, I think, for Ohio State. Not to say they don't win. I think they'll win that game still, but I think you see a different Michigan than Oregon will.
November 2nd, Ohio State at Penn State also is quite a tough
monster.
Game.
Yeah. I would wager that it ends up being a rematch between Oregon and Ohio State for the Big Ten championship. But Ohio State does have some roadblocks. They got to beat a good Penn State team, and they got to beat a Michigan team that hates them.
Could I argue though, the Ducks may not? If you're the number one team in the country, you're going to still play. I actually think the way the bracket works out, you're going to play like an LSU or an Alabama or a team that comes out of the SEC that underperformed, it might be better up front and is frankly really, really good. What do you say to that thought that maybe number one isn't as it's not as glamorous as it might sound when you look at the playoff bracket and how the playoff bracket might work out?
It's so matchup dependent. Like, it's going to depend on where the CFP committee like puts these teams. There's a lot of people that think that you'd rather have 5 than 3 or 4, because if you're playing 5, you're playing you have a home game against the group of 5 team, the worst ranked team that gets in, and then you get a favorable second round matchup as well.
Yep.
I don't disagree with that necessarily. It would depend on, again, the shakeout of the rest of the bracket. For when you're talking about Oregon, I saw something that the Athletic posted, one of their bracket predictions, and they had Oregon at 1, playing Clemson, which I think is a dream matchup for Oregon. I think Clemson is not that good. That game would be played at the Rose Bowl, which is a cross country journey for Clemson and a quick trip down south for Oregon. So I think, like, in that circumstance, 1 seed Oregon playing Clemson in the second round, I think that's kind of a dream draw. And then you'd be playing the presumptive winner of Ohio State in this bracket, and so you're getting that Ohio State game anyway. No one's going to get through, unless we have like a crazy upset early on. No one's going to get through this 12-team bracket without having to play a really, really, really good opponent and beating them. But it's where you play them. If you can get a game that's fortunate enough to be, near your home crowd. And again, I think it's just team matchups. Oregon's number 1 right now. I'm not walking around saying this is the best team in the country. They're ranked that way. They have a 1 next to their name, but like,
yeah,
there's everyone has warts this year. I don't think there's one team you can definitively say is the best team in the country at all at this point, despite Oregon's record and winning out against Ohio State. I don't walk into Texas thinking you win that game necessarily.
If I'm Oregon, I want to play a BYU, a Miami, a
Iowa State,
Clemson, someone like that in round 1, rather than a 2-loss Alabama team or a 1 or 2-loss Texas team or Georgia. I really think we're going to see multiple. We're probably going to see 4 SEC teams, 3 or 4 in the top 12, and the last 11 and 12 is probably going to be a 1 or 2-loss SEC team, and that's a really tough matchup for the number 1 in seed. Even though I think worse teams are going to be higher up in the bracket at like 8, 9, 10, or 7. Which are going to be like an undefeated Miami or a 1-loss Miami.
Well, you don't have to look beyond the Big Ten. I mean, assuming things shake out roughly the way they are now, the second place team in the Big Ten, presumably either Oregon or Ohio State, you will take against the winner of the ACC.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that that team won the ACC, so they're going to be almost certainly Clemson or Miami, and you would take Oregon or Ohio State against Clemson or Miami pretty much any day of the week, despite the fact they won a conference and the other team didn't. I don't think anybody's going to be able to have a good idea of how this goes for any team until this bracket is like finalized, and we've obviously still got a lot of season left. But feels great in Eugene, man.
I just think it's so good for Dan Lanning's mission. I really like Dan Lanning. I love that he stayed. He's trying to build Oregon.
Want like 4 decades of Dan Lanning. I want to be like a middle-aged person with Dan Lanning. I never. And obviously, there's a lot of people that have felt a lot of ways about coaches like this, and then things turn and things go, whatever. I have never resonated with an Oregon coach more. I'm so happy. I thank everybody every day that he's with us.
Dude, I think being 1 for most of the year, which I think is possible, beating Ohio State is the best possible outcome for the beginning of this Dan Lanning era. What he's done so far speaks for itself, and what's happened this year could not be better for changing the way Oregon is viewed nationally, to draw recruits from the South, to make, maybe win recruiting battles against SEC programs, to
they are, and they're going to continue to win them. I mean,
and to secure more and more money from, donors as well. All Dan Lanning has done by beating Ohio State and being number 1 in the country, and the longer he can sustain this, the more this feeling is going to persist, is that he's bought belief in what he's doing, that it's working.
Yeah, I think I converse with a lot of Oregon fans. I'm in Oregon groups, and I talk to Oregon fans all week and on game day. And I think a lot of people, especially younger fans, like people who are even younger than myself, who kind of first found Oregon consciousness in the like latter Chip Kelly, Mark Helfrich, days, 2014 to 2019. when they're beating everybody by 50 points and it's fast and it's loud and you're winning 11 games a year and you make a national title. The approach is different with this current iteration of Oregon coaching kind of philosophy. I think we've seen it in the UCLA game and the Michigan State game. We saw it in the Purdue game. If they're up big near halftime, we're not going to try to score 70. I think Dan Lanning's trying to play like an SEC program. He's more than happy to win 34-13 and dominate the ball and play and play smart and not put stuff on tape that you don't have to. And I like it. It's jarring to people who are used to Oregon putting up 60 points a week, but I think that when you win games against bad teams like 56-3 or something, then when you play a good team and have a bad week, that turns into a 7-point loss. Whereas if you're beating teams 31-13 and you're dominating the ball, a bad week means you win by 3 instead of 20, but you won because you did all the right things. I think that foundational kind of change is important. It speaks to what he's trying to do.
Yeah, man, that's all I got. I ask you this: can you send me live texts on Friday and Saturday night as we both watch MLB baseball together at the same time?
Yeah, man.
I think that'd be really fun. Just let's. I love. I love when people text me during games with their thoughts.
It's one of my favorite things, actually. I like watching games with people. I love it.
Yeah.
But then you almost feel like you have to talk if you're with someone, that there's conversation that has to happen. And then you lose some of the little stuff. Mm-hmm. I love texting during games. It's one of the weird sports quirks that I have where it's I like that I can sit down and I'm in my office and I'm watching the game on my computer and I'm watching alone. I'm taking everything in. I'm watching in silence except for the game, audio. So I can take everything in, but then I can also have conversations. And I just said, with on Ducks football Saturdays or during Saturdays watching Red Zone, I'm always on the phone. I'm always talking to somebody because I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
I think that's the most relatable thing that's ever been said on Strong Opinion Sports, honestly. Because you take the social pressure away. You don't have to perform at all. You can be comfortable in your space. You can sit like a fat slob, eat whatever you want. Your guard is totally down, and yet you can still have a shared experience with your friends. It's kind of the perfect threading the needle.
This is the ultimate antisocial, borderline millennial thing that people are going to be people don't see each other anymore. That's going to be the freelance article.
Hey man, the government locked me in my house for 2 years and I had the best time ever and realized I don't want to go out anymore. I like being at home. I like watching sports from home.
So you'll probably agree.
I like doing everything.
So, the American Super Bowl party has its place.
Sure.
It's not a great game watching setting.
I hate it. I hate Super Bowl parties with a passion.
I was going to say, I had a feeling you would.
No,
yeah.
Dude, I no fucking way. Don't invite me. I don't want to go. I will say the best Super Bowl party I've ever been to was with a guy named Sanders. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona. I was on my road trip. Him and his friends, they could hang, dude. They didn't ask annoying questions. They just cared about the game. They made good food. That's the best Super Bowl party I've ever been to. But ironically, all the ones I've done with my family, fucking terrible. You know what I want? Me, maybe my dad, my lady, and that's it. And I'm happy to have good snacks by myself, watch the game, take notes like a nerd, have a giant legal pad because I'm an idiot. And then I can text my friends about the game because then I get to opt into it and there's no pressure. There's no yelling. The worst is the guy who doesn't watch football, who's just yelling about nonsense or all passionate and clearly has no fucking idea what he's talking about. And you're like, dude, it's your third football game you watched all year. Don't have a strong opinion about this.
I think I've mentioned this to you before, either on this show or on the other one that we do. I actually kind of steer away from talking sports with people in public.
Yeah. Oh, same.
I don't like to do it. I don't like to do it.
Dude, it's politics. It's man, I'm good. I don't want to hear your opinion. I don't care. Dude, it was really funny. I did a sales call the other day with a guy who works in marketing for the Blazers, right?
Okay.
You would think me and him were going to have a crazy good conversation about sports. I work in sports. He clearly works in sports. And I didn't even go there once. I asked him about his life, about having kids. I asked him about everything possible other than his job in sports. Mm-hmm. So I'm I don't actually care at all. I want to hear about your garden in your backyard. That's what I'm interested in.
And I'm not to disparage the people that work in sports offices that are not on the team side. I'm less interested as a sports person, about like a marketing job.
Yeah.
And I know that that's important, but like my questions, it's not so much that I don't want to ask you questions. It's more that the questions I have, you're just not in a position to answer.
Yeah.
Like I want team specific. So, I don't care as much about
When you're not going to
commercials.
wow me with access. Like, dude, I saw Greg Oden up close. I'm like, I don't give a shit at all, actually. So, you know what? Justin Herbert was in my lap when he played Washington State. Like, yeah, he was 2 feet from me. I've shaken hands with Sam Darnold. I don't care at all if you've been near star. Actually, you know what? I got to say this. I was in my lobby during our fire alarm thing, minutes before recording. There was this guy going on and on about how he's this big time lawyer who does corporate merges, and he was talking about how he's like, yeah, I'm like an intellectual professional athlete. Like when I was a kid, I just wanted the hardest job possible. And he's
truly legitimately good chance I work with this person.
Dude, he's going on and on. The douchiest guy I've met in quite a while. And I wanted to just say to him, like, dude, you live in frankly, like a shitty building paying rent. Like you're not what you think you are. If you had all this money and all this shit you're talking about, not only would you not live here, you wouldn't tell anybody. I'm like, man, you really he scratched the part of me that I'm like, dude, fuck this guy so much. Like this guy is one of the worst people I've ever met or been around, because the bragging about it and the need to show off when clearly the guy who was listening to him also, by the way, is like, yeah, didn't give a fuck. And he didn't get the memo that
he did that's crazy.
You're bragging. He did. He really did. And I was sitting there just giving this guy the side eye, like this fucking guy. I'm like, it made me so mad. And
I'm when you don't like things because you're such a positive person. And I just, it's not something that I'm not that way by and large. So
you're a hater.
I like when you get mad at stuff because I get mad at stuff a lot.
You almost certainly do work with this guy because he talked about his office up in Seattle.
Like a really decent chance.
Yeah, if he's your coworker, one of the worst human beings I've come across in my time in Portland, Oregon. Hey. I was like, man, oh my gosh, fuck this guy. Sorry.
No, I mean, there would be no way to confirm, but
no.
God, I'm not gonna say it's like a high, but like a reasonably good chance. That,
I'm sure you do.
There is a reasonably good chance. That's funny.
Oh man, let's end it there, man. I love you so much. I appreciate you. I look forward to talking to you on Friday about baseball and Saturday. And we'll convene soon, whether it's about baseball or the other show.
Let's do an after the World Series. Can I pimp myself for a second? I forgot. I would have brought this up to you pre-show, so you could have planned for it. I forgot. I'm bad.
Go for it.
Have I told you about Extra Life before?
No, a little bit, but go. Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah. So Extra Life is a thing that's gaining popularity. It's gained popularity in the last several years, but it's an event that is put on in conjunction with the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. It's a charitable event. The idea of Extra Life is that it's a company that facilitates donations to these hospitals. And the kind of culmination of all this is a National Day of Play, which is what I've participated in now. This is my 10th year. It's a 24-hour, for most people, you don't have to do what we do. You play games, you play video games, you play board games, you play games for 24 hours if you can hang the entire time. If you are so inclined, you do it live on Twitch or you stream it in some way. You accept donations for your team. Each donation goes to the hospital of your choosing in its entirety, 100%. It's tax write-offable. So I know that people usually have to pay for sponsorships on this channel. But if we could set something up to be able to make this happen, all of the I think I can say now with honesty that we have in the most literal sense raised tens of thousands of dollars for just the team that I'm a part of. The whole Extra Life community has raised millions over the years for various hospitals. I support OHSU Dornbecker every year. Hospital does a lot of good things in my hometown, your current town of Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming up November 2nd. If it's not me, then pick somebody. Find your socials, search Extra Life, do something. We encourage donations. It's a great thing. It's for the kids.
I gotta say, I participated once. Actually, I was on Tom Grossi's Extra Life stream. I want to say last year, actually, like for real. I think I did it. I was in Hawaii. It had to have been last year, actually. I know I've done Extra Life streams with Tom Grossi before, so I know a little bit. I participated in my own small, weird little way. The light bulb went off.
No,
and I was like,
awesome.
I'm
glad you've done it. I'm glad you got some experience with it. It's awesome. And at the end of the day, it's it's kind of an excuse to play video games all day. But at the same time, like again, we've raised a ton of money. Extra Life as a whole has raised millions and millions of dollars with the team that I'm a part of. We've raised a lot of money over the last decade. This is year 10 for me, 11 for the group. It's something that we do every year. We love it. So maybe I'll throw a link to in a YouTube comment on this video to donate, and love the support from SOS Nation.
You continue to be one of my favorite people in the world. It just never ends. Can I ask a totally irrelevant question? What game do you guys play? How does that work?
Everything. We play a lot of stuff. So the group is essentially, it's a guy you met. He was in my wedding, Dan. He's who turned me on to Extra Life. He did the first year with another group, and then he told me about it when year 2. This was again 10 years ago, and since then we've done it. I've done it in person with him a few times. I've driven up to his abode up in Vancouver, BC, and we've done it together.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Yeah. We do it remotely. We'll do it remotely this year because he just had a new baby. Congrats to him, and their house is full. So we'll do it remotely this year. But yeah, no. To answer your question, we play all kinds of stuff. We have some standbys. Play a lot of Grand Theft Auto 5 because it's still out. It's still a game that people play. This entire course of Extra Life that we've done, it's still the game. We play NHL, we play sports games, we do all kinds of stuff. We'll try to find, for the PlayStation owners out there, there's the PlayStation Plus monthly games. You get a couple of free, usually indie games, sometimes bigger titles. So we try to scroll through that and see if we can find some dumb stuff to get into for a little while. You got to kill 24 hours. But it's a good time. It's a lot of fun. We mix it up, play a lot of different games, and it's a blast. We love doing it.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, put a link in the description of this episode, and if you don't, I'll ask for it and make sure that happens.
Yeah, I'll throw it in a comment. And I know you can pin comments, right? I'll throw it in a comment, my donation page, and if would love and appreciate the support.
Absolutely. Can I do something weird? So we do another podcast about our lives, and we talk about it. I've got a thought, and I shouldn't say this publicly, but I'm going to.
Nice. Because I love that.
It's buried at the end of SOS. Like, she's never going to see it. Her mom might see it, but her mom knows. Her mom knows the whole plan, so it's fine.
Okay.
I bought a ring, dude. I'm so excited.
Nice.
It's in motion. It's not going to happen. I won't say publicly, because if she does ever see it, I don't want her to know exactly when the plan is happening, but I've got a great plan. I'm very excited. It's going to be very cool. And I just tell you that now to say, I can't wait to talk about that privately, like about the plan there, because it's going to be cool. And I'm very excited for this whole
teasing the listeners.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you're talking about this, and they're going to hear it, and they're going to be like, I wonder what he's going to do. And then whether it's on our show or whether it's immediately after you hit stop on the record, we're going to get to have a conversation that they don't get to hear.
What I'm so proud of is I'm guarantee 100% Molly's not going to see this. Like, I love that, like the reality.
There's just no shot.
She's not going to see. No way is she going to see or hear this moment on the pod. She doesn't listen to Strong. There's no way she listens to Strong Opinion Sports. I feel totally safe.
Has your dad heard every episode? He strikes me as the kind of person who would listen to every episode.
I have no idea. He does occasionally send me messages. And I'm like, you've watched at least some of these, but I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But anyway, let's end it there, man. I love you. We'll talk soon.
Love you, man.
I mean, we'll talk right after I hit, stop recording, but anyways, love you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Well, guys, that's all I got today. Thanks for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. And bam, we are done.